Okay, I'd like to call this meeting of the Town Council to order for April 25th. If you would rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Just as a quick opening, Finley Rothaus is excused tonight, so I'll be taking over chairman position for this evening. Where are we at? Announcements. I have to get my order straightened out here. Excuse me. Not many on my side. Upcoming town council meetings, Thursday, May 9th, at 7 p.m. here in the Matthew Thornton Room is a regular meeting, and Thursday, May 23rd, at 7 p.m. in the Matthew Thornton Room here is a regular meeting. Eileen, did you have any additional announcements?
The National DEA Prescription Drug Take Back Day is this Saturday from April 27th, on April 27th from 10 to 2. Please bring your unused or expired prescription drugs to the police station for disposal. No liquids or needles, please. If you cannot make time, there is a drug box in the lobby where you can dispose of prescription drugs 24/7. Late night hours at the transfer station will begin on Thursday, May 9th. The transfer station will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursdays through September 12th. So I'm going to repeat that again.
Okay.
Late night hours at the transfer station will begin on Thursday, May 9th. The transfer station will be open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. on Thursdays through September 12th. What?
8 a.m. Transfer station opens up at 8.
It says 7.
I know, they're just giving me the signal for...
8 a.m. 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. I said incorrectly
Thank you.
twice. So,
You were going to get interrupted again.
okay. So the town, sorry, Nancy, if you're out
Gonna be
there.
one of those days, huh?
Okay, the town clerk's office would like to remind dog owners that dogs must be licensed by April 30th. Failure to do so will result in late fees and possible fines. This is very interesting. The town clerk tax collector's office is pleased to announce that beginning on Tuesday, May 7th, the office will begin offering extended hours. The office will remain open until 7 p.m. on the first Tuesday of each month. All regular business with the office can be transacted during this time. So beginning on Tuesday, May 7th, the office of the tax collector, town clerk, will be offering extended hours. The first Tuesday of each month, the office will remain open until 7 p.m. Thank you.
Great. That's it for announcements. I have a proclamation that we didn't get on the agenda. Can we talk about that during, maybe under recognition, resignations, and assignments, or something, or appointments? Do you suppose? Mm-hmm. Okay, I'll bring it up in a little bit. At this point, we'll go to comments from the press and public. Anybody that wants to make comments to the town council may do so at this time.
Hi, I hate to bother you guys, but anyway, my name is Julie Tomshock. Prior it was Baxter. I've lived in off and on in the area over the course of 20 years, 19. Basically, I'm kind of in a situation where I am homeless. A lot of it prompted from actions within the Merrimack community. And so I'm kind of at a conundrum, frustration, because I've reached out to other resources in the area, and what I'm learning, it's kind of disheartening. There's really not a lot of resources out there. They're very limited on what they can offer, especially where I have the 3 dogs. But I kind of, I don't want to come across rude, but my situation, like I said, this is a habitual problem that has happened to me repeatedly. I would formulate a plan, go to school, get 4 degrees, and lo and behold, I got a problem with the police department undermining, so I can't get a job. Then I go through, I get a house. I walk down a street or drive down a street, same thing, I get arrested for driving down the street. Lose my job, I can't keep the apartment. I make a phone call on an airplane at the advice of an attorney to call my children. Oh, you're gonna get arrested, $5,000. Every time I turn around, it's always something, and it's stemming out of Merrimack. And, you know, I've got my little dogs, I clean up after them, and I kind of feel as if Merrimack needs to clean up after themselves. This stemmed out of them, and I kind of feel like the wealthier communities are pushing their problems to the inner cities. And the inner cities have, you know, they're overwhelmed. And it's frustrating on my part because there's really not a safe place to park. And I kind of feel like, okay, you run out of gas, then what happens? Your vehicle gets towed, you lose everything you own. So therefore, the rich get wealthy off the poor. And that's kind of been, you know, I think it's illegal. They're making it illegal to be poor. And I don't think that's right. And so I'm standing here requesting a permit to basically park at a public park overnight. And I know that is not necessarily on the agenda, but I think you guys might want to reevaluate that. I think there are people in the community that are not a drug addict, they're not a threat. There's elderly people waiting for public housing that are on a wait list. So they're stuck in campgrounds or in these other places, and I think that Merrimack does have campsites that they could put in a porta potty, provide transportation to a gym where they can take showers and get by. And so I just want to kind of put that on maybe a later agenda for, or maybe goals later on under section 3. But anyway, I just want to put it out there because this is a problem. And like I said, this has been ongoing for 10 years. And you get to a point, I've suffered post-traumatic stress over this. I go to volunteer at my kid's school. I get arrested. It doesn't matter if you try to do the good thing. You get pushed down. It's not okay.
Okay, thank you
All
very
right.
much, I appreciate
Thank
it. Is there anybody else wishing to address the council tonight? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Dr. Ann Terry. I live on 20 Trowbridge in Merrimack. I have been disturbed to find out that our street is a place of interest regarding the PFAS contamination. I talked to DHES, and they said it's because of southeast winds. They blow the contamination right to my street, which is 8 miles away from St. Gobain. So I would like to ask if we can have a clarification of research that's being done into this issue. When I look online, it all seems to be stuff that is paid for by St. Gobain. That doesn't look very accurate to me. Doesn't look like they're going to look for the worst case scenario or even what's going to happen to the average person. So I'm very concerned about this issue. I have read recently that they are doing research so that if somebody gets a cancer, they will actually be able to examine the mutation and they will be able to identify which chemical caused it. So we are in an era now where people are not going to get away with this. So I think Merrimack should do everything right now, not just for our health, but because they will be able to trace it back to every person that made a decision regarding the PFAS. So thank you very much.
May I
Thank
ask you a question?
Go ahead.
Are you concerned about the water you're drinking? Is that your?
I have always used reverse osmosis, and we've
Okay.
always bought water. The concern I have is that this came in the air. This did not come through the water.
understand.
It's the southeast wind that DHES has identified. There's a hill on our street, and they said that actually what happens, I've always liked that house because it was up on a hill and it had a great view, but that house collects the PFAS, and their well had rates of 90 to 120. And the state is actually paying to filter their water right now.
Okay.
And of course, we're going to filter our whole house. There's no question about that. When I moved to Merrimack, there were pamphlets at the library from DHES that talked about the arsenic in the well. I immediately put reverse osmosis in our house and did not trust well water. I think my point is that we need to know the information. I feel like in the last 2 years, it's been hidden from us. Now it will be hidden no more because I will do research myself.
Okay.
But I would like to see the town make official, and I don't want to have to go out there as the local person talking to each house, knocking on the doors. I would rather it come from our government functioning properly.
Great, very good, thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add something to her thing. Just so you know, mine was a thyroid condition in the beginning. There's a good possibility it was a PFOA contamination that caused my problems, which escalated to all this situation. So just to let you know.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to address the council at this point? Seeing none, we'll close the public session. We have no recognitions, resignations, or retirements to attend to tonight. I would like to bring up at this point, under appointments, we have a proclamation that's been presented to the town council for the 50th anniversary of Municipal Clerks Week, which is May 5th through 11th, and we don't have another meeting before that week. So if the council's okay to take this up to consider it, I would appreciate it. Whereas the office of the municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, whereas the municipal service clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, whereas municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the office of the municipal clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the office of the municipal clerk. Now, therefore, we, the Merrimack Town Council, do recognize the week of May 7th through 13th. It says 5th through 11th at the top, but anyway, as Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our municipal clerk and staff and to all municipal clerks for the vital services that they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Dated this day and presumably signed by the council if you are willing to accept it. Anybody
I
have-
move to accept the proclamation as read.
Second.
Moved by Nancy and seconded by Barbara. Is any other discussion? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's 6-0. Any opposed?
Actually, it's 5 because Bill's not here.
Oh, Bill left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5-0-1 because Bill's not here. I don't know. And we'll pass that around for signatures.
Signature.
Thank you, I appreciate the indulgence. We have no other appointments or public hearings. Assigned legislative updates from state representatives. Oh, the reorg, excuse me. If you can give me just a
You can
second.
stay where you are, though.
It was easy to pass that one up.
Wait a second.
Why did I miss that completely? So we have the reorganization of the town council. I'm sitting in for Finley, which is why I'm confused here. Pursuant to Charter Article 4, Sections 4-2, organizational meeting, our first meeting of the fully seated council after the election is a reorganizational meeting. And so our first order of business is to appoint a chair and vice chair for the ensuing year. So at this point, I would open nominations for chair for the upcoming year. Nancy?
I'd like to nominate Tom Koenig as chair.
Second.
Seconds are not necessary, but thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you. I would accept the nomination. Are there any other announcement, any other nominations for chair? For chair.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Nancy Herring as vice chair.
But we're not there yet.
Okay, we'll get there in just a
We
second.
gotta do the chair.
We're still doing the chair.
I thought you did. Oh.
Any other nominations for chair? Seeing none, all those in favor of Tom Koenig for chair, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? I'll abstain, making it a 4-0-1 for me. So thank you very much for your vote of confidence and the opportunity. I really appreciate it. and I look forward to serving you and the town in this position. The next order of business is vice chair. Lon, did you?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Nancy Harrington as vice chair of the town council.
Okay. Nancy? Are there any other nominations for vice chair? Peter?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to nominate Bill Boyd. And the only reason, and this is certainly nothing against Nancy, she was a wonderful chairwoman.
Not taken.
She did a fantastic job. Bill's been on, a long tenured member of this council. And I haven't seen him have his chance, and he can correct me, but I think he'd make a nice vice chair on this situation. He's served his time certainly to earn that position if he wants to accept it. So he's my nomination.
Bill, would you accept the nomination?
Back in 2012, Dave Yakubov was vice chair and had to step down for health reasons and nominated me to serve in his stead. So I had a brief fleeting 6-month sojourn sitting next to Finley Rothaus at that time. I'm very honored, I'm very flattered, and I do accept the nomination. Thank you, Pete.
Okay. At this point, we'll go through a roll call vote, just straight for either Nancy or Bill,
Fine.
assuming there's no other nominations. Okay?
Okay.
I guess we'll start with Lon at this point. Well, there's no clear,
whatever
easy
you
way to
want.
start. Yeah, we'll start with Lon.
We're voting
For either Nancy or for Bill for vice chair.
Nancy Harrington.
Oh, I hate this.
Nancy?
Oh, my God. I'm going to abstain myself because I don't, and I'm very comfortable. I have no problem whatsoever.
I'm going to vote for Nancy. Barbara?
Boyd?
Boyd?
Bill?
So it's 2-2 and an abstention.
Yep.
So if I abstain like Nancy, we have a tie.
We have to start over.
Whatever you're comfortable with, Bill. I'm fine.
Let's have some fun. I abstain.
Glutton.
I'm going to reopen the nomination for vice chair at this point, since we had no clear winner.
We're going to
Anybody-
blame Finley, you know that, don't you?
That's right.
That's the whole point.
We told Finley there'd be payback for this.
There was a plan here.
Does anybody care to make a nomination for vice chair at this point?
Mr. Chairman, I nominate Nancy Harrington for vice chair.
And Mr. Chairman, I nominate Bill Boyd for vice chair.
Any other nominations? I'm about to nominate Peter Albert, but, you know.
That may be.
All right, do either of you want to make any other comments or statements? Nancy?
Well played. I'm very comfortable, Bill, if you want to do it. I really don't have a problem. What you're saying is absolutely correct. I also don't want to insult anybody by not accepting it either, so I'm at its stance. I'm not sure what to say either. If either one of you want to change, I won't hold it against you. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Bill, did you want to add anything?
No, I don't. I think what Council Harrington has said is very eloquent, and I appreciate it.
All right, we'll start the vote from the other end this time, just because we're trying to be fair, so. Bill?
Bill Boyd.
Bill Boyd?
Boyd?
I'll vote for Bill Boyd.
I'll do Bill Boyd as well.
Wow.
Bill Boyd.
Wow.
There we go. See?
Wow.
You solved that. Bill Boyd, congratulations.
Here till 2 in the morning.
We'll have you as
Wow.
vice chair.
We cooperate too much for that.
I would hope.
And I
I'm-
think there is a mutual sense of respect among all the members. And so I
Absolutely.
think that has to be reflected. So I'm glad. Congratulations.
I'm stunned. Thank you.
So move your
Seriously,
seat.
stunned.
Move your seat,
Can I have your
kiddo.
name tag?
Gonna miss you.
Now we got this whole space to ourselves.
Now we could move on.
Oh, that's what I
Thank you.
didn't make check marks. So.
See, now you're gonna have to look straight into the camera now, Bill. He always liked that side because it was his good side.
And you can't. It was. No, I was asking, it was. So much for,
It is what it is. Okay,
congratulations.
now we can get on with it.
Thank you. Good. Okay. Now we can go with legislative updates. Thank you very much for your indulgence.
Sure, thank you very much. Congratulations, Bill.
Thank you, Representative.
The first announcement I have is quite a delight. I spoke with DES Clark earlier this week, and he did inform me that Joppa, Ridgewood, and the Knollwood area of town would have their construction connection to the water main beginning May 9th, and that it's due for completion by the end of August. So I'm very pleased for the constituents that may be worried. I have heard from some about when this will be started. It will be started May 9th for a completion date of August.
Kathy, what were those roads again? I'm sorry.
It's the area around Joppa, Ridgewood, Knollwood. I believe there's some surrounding areas there, but they will be started May 9th.
Good.
Without delay. Secondly, I would like to thank all of you for your support in trying to resolve this situation. Secondly, I'm going to make this very, very brief and quick. Messenger.
Don't kill the messenger. She's warning us already.
I'm warning you already. Messenger. This is coming from Laureen Allen. She has asked that I read this into the record. She said that this is an email or some type of text that she sent Bill, but she does want me to read it out loud here. Messenger. Hi, Bill. I would like the following request made of the town council as discussed last evening. Would the town council support and be willing to request a meeting with Governor Sununu to include a representative from Merrimack Village District, myself, meaning Laureen, as an informed citizen advocate, and a representative from the town council for the purpose of a discussion regarding PFAS impacts and the cost to Merrimack residents? I see this as a good opportunity to update the governor on what has been addressed and what we know will be addressed and where we need further attention. One of the topics of discussion would be to explore the role of the Attorney General's office, who may be able to assist in revisiting the inadequate Saint-Gobain agreement with MVD. We would also like to discuss the impacts to private well owners in Merrimack that have been disputed by Saint-Gobain. It is my belief, again, this is Laureen, that a conversation would personalize the struggles we are having and assist the governor in understanding the disproportionate burden our community bears. I would be interested in hearing his thoughts. Another option, if the town council feels would be more beneficial, would be a town hall type meeting with Governor Sununu, similar to the listening session on PFAS issues our community had with Congressman Pappas last Monday evening. Thank you for your consideration on making this request. I look forward to hearing your thoughts from the town council. I emailed as I work till 7. I will not be able to be here tonight, so I'm asking the representative to read for me, blah, blah, blah. My last thing is I happen to drive by the Flatley property several times a day, and I just wanted to bring it to the council's attention that that pile of dirt that is not to be moved is moving all over the place. So I want to let you know I will be calling DES tomorrow to advise them of that. I've also taken some pictures, and I just wanted to let the council know that I'm on top of it.
Just out of curiosity, is the dirt moving off-site, or is it just moving around
I don't know if it's
site?
moving off-site. I know the pile that was stationary is much smaller, and there is dirt all around.
Okay,
That's
thank
all
you
I
very
know.
much.
Okay, thank you.
Bill?
Thank you. Representative Stack, I actually had print this off and was going to bring it up under council's comments tonight. Okay. I know that, I think it was Representative Murphy had emailed us something similar over the last couple of days. So I don't know
About the Sununu?
about the Sununu thing. So I don't know whether, do we want to put this on the agenda for the next meeting to make it formal to Governor Sununu asking, or Do we want to informal it? I guess I would ask my colleagues for their opinion.
Oh, my own. Yeah.
Yes.
Chair. I think I would prefer to wait till the date is made with, the plans already being made with Governor Sununu and attending that.
Okay.
But that's my personal, because that's
Okay.
not determined yet, right?
That's not determined yet.
But
Okay.
that's my opinion.
That's fair.
Someone else may have others.
That's fair. And then, if I could talk about the Chopper Ridgewood Knollwood, there's a reason why that neighborhood never got hooked up to public water.
I have various understandings of that,
Okay,
Counselor Boyd.
and my understanding is you got ledge up in there, because there's a house that sits on the corner of Knollwood and Joppa Road that was hooked up to MVD, but also had a private well that the individual had used for watering his lawn and watering his garden. So I would hope that there would be a conversation had with DES and maybe consulting with Eileen through DPW regarding our blasting ordinance, because they may need to blast on those particular roads to put into the particular pipe. Now we're talking about some of the concrete foundations, and now we're kind of revisiting some of the issues that Councilor Harrington and Councilor Woods had to deal with several years ago when the planning board was dealing with the Merrimack Premium Outlet Project. So I, as your counsel, and actually as your neighbor, because I live down the other end of Chopper Road, I have a lot of concerns about them wanting to hook up, and I will say this publicly, I privately spoke with Clark, and I told him that you had ledge in there, and it's gonna be very difficult to put a connection from MVD off of Joppa Road into that particular neighborhood, that it may behoove the DES to look at point of source filtration with some type of monitoring contract in place, date certain, not in perpetuity, but date certain, so that the neighbors up there can have that kind of assurance that that they know how their filtering system works, and they know how to assume the responsibility once that date certain, again, this is, hypothetical, of course, once that date certain period ended. So I appreciate your comments, but I would really encourage you in the other parts of the neighbors in the neighborhood, and if you would like me to participate, I'm happy to do so. But there needs to be a conversation with DES regarding how they plan to put the pipes in there.
I can assure you I had a conversation with Clark at DES, quite
Okay, good.
lengthy conversation. He and I spoke about the ledge quite extensively. I am aware of it. As I discussed with you earlier, I believe this week, Bill, my neighbors and I have no contention as to whether it is a reverse osmosis. I think there are options available.
Yep.
However, I think we need to realize that it needs to be done. We're going on 3 years. I think that's excessive. I think it was a shame that St. Gobain pushed it back this far, my personal opinion, and I think we do have options.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Representative Thomas, welcome, Counselor, and welcome back, Counselor, and welcome, thank you all for having me here. I wasn't here last week because I was recovering from emergency surgery, but I want to address some comments that were made last week, that I made a comment that was a disservice to the town of Merrimack. Last week, I testified at the hearing for Bill 737, establishing a commission to look at the area towns affected by PFAS. Councilor Bill Boyd was there. The senators were alarmed at the testimony and saw the need for a commission to study this geographic area. One of the senators asked if a veterinarian was included in the bill. It is not, specifically for the small animal issue that was raised. One senator came up to me after the hearing and said that he sees that a study is needed, but that if we wait for 7 years for the report, people will die. This is what he said to me. Clearly, the committee saw the need to do something immediately. I have medical training. One of my degrees is in medical biology, and I have worked as a clinical microbiologist. I'm good with disease symptomology and diagnoses. One of the best courses I have ever taken was a graduate course in epidemiology at UMass Lowell. It taught me to look at trends instead of individual statistics. It also taught me to look at the forest and not the trees. So before this meeting, I passed out the chart from DHHS on the cancers that are in our town from 2005 to 2014. It's on, should be a copy of it in front of each of you. On the right-hand side, every single column, or every single row, I'm sorry, says not statistically different, not statistically different.
Significantly different.
I'm sorry?
Significantly different.
Not significantly different. So what I would like you to do is just circle some things, and I'm going to give you some numbers, and just write them by them. We're only going to look at the cancers that have increased from 2005 to 2014, increased over what they expected to see based on a general population. The first is esophagus. That increased 10%, if you want to circle that one. The next one is colorectal, which increased 13%. The next one actually is uterus, but star that one for now. You don't have to circle it. That increased 10%. Prostate cancer is the next one. That increased 13%. Bladder cancer, 14%. Kidney and renal pelvis cancers, 20%. Thyroid cancer was 22%. Leukemia, you can star that one for now. It increased 16%. So if you've done it the way that I told you to do it, your chart is going to look something like this. Every single cancer that was highlighted that increased in the town of Merrimack is definitively associated with PFAS exposure. That's why you have to look at the forest instead of the trees. If you look at one of these pieces of information, it does not look like a big deal, a 10% increase in a population. But when you see that every single cancer related to PFAS has increased in the town of Merrimack, it becomes significant. Now let's go back to uterine cancer and the leukemia. We know that PFAS is found in the blood and that it is a hormone disruptor. The uterus is a blood-rich organ that is dependent on hormones. We also know that PFAS passes the placental barrier. I'm willing to bet that both of those cancers will be definitively associated with PFAS exposure. What this report does not include is the non-cancer illnesses, kidney disease, thyroid disease, immune dysfunction, and tumors. I've always taught my children that 1 point is a point, 2 points is a line, 3 points indicates a trend. We have 6 points indicating a trend, and from an epidemiological point of view, that's statistically significant. In my neighborhood, there are 3 cases of colon cancer and 1 of bladder cancer. Those are only the ones I know about. To me, that feels statistically significant. This week, I received my recent water testing results from Saint-Gobain. My well is testing at 42.5 parts per trillion for the combined PFOA and PFOS. That does not include this chart, and I will get you all a PDF of this report. These are all PFAS chemicals that are also in my water that are not being included in the count. The ATSDR testing protocol report released in February outlines the protocol for studying the blood results of prepubescent children for PFAS impact. And I can get you this file as well. It's a PDF of the protocol. No one studies children without there being a good reason. They're talking about taking blood from children. In the United States, that's not something that is taken lightly. There has to be a reason for that to happen. Animals. Since I talked about 2 of my dogs dying from cancer, skin tumors, and kidney disease, quite a few people in town have contacted me to say that they have also had problems with pets. Tumors and cancers are the 2 that pop up often. And it could be that because kidney disease in dogs, it could be difficult to diagnose. Rhabdomyosarcoma, of which we have 2 adult cases in Merrimack, is a soft tissue tumor disease. Tumors seem to be a running theme with PFAS. 3 years ago, I had a tumor removed from my hand right here. It was non-cancerous, but they said it was a weird tumor and not one that they expected to see in my hand. 2 years ago, I had a tumor in my face removed. They cut my face open from the tip of my eye down to below my nose. That tumor was cancerous. And again, they said that it was weird and not one they expected to see on my face. I currently have 7 tumors on my arms. I'm waiting for more data points. Right now, we've got a line. Tumor growth is documented with PFAS exposure. We need to take care of our children and small animals by giving them bottled and/or filtered water. Now, let's start talking about the good news. What we've done as a town. We have a citizens group, Merrimack Citizens for Clean Water, that is constantly doing research and sending us the most current information. We have 4 very strong women at the State House fighting for Merrimack on a daily basis. We constantly bang the drum, and partly due to our efforts, other reps are talking about PFAS. Area reps are reaching out to be educated on what PFAS is and what they can do to protect their residents. Our town voted to protect and filter our water. That is huge. Other towns are looking to us as the flagship town in how to handle this. They are looking at you guys on how this is handled. Merrimack is the flagship town in southern New Hampshire, and we are leading the way for other towns, but we still have a lot of work to do. We need to protect private water. We need to stop the continued contamination. We need to hold Saint-Gobain accountable to both cover the costs of their contamination and to be accountable to continued biomonitoring and to pay for any medical costs. Because there was a question about my service to Merrimack, I just want to give you a rundown of some of the things that I've done for the town of Merrimack with regards to PFAS. I'm arranging to attend a condo meeting with residents of Webster Green. We were shown photos of soot in the corners of walls. There are complaints of smell. They're told not to dig in their dirt. They have said that when Saint-Gobain burns, they cannot have any open windows because the smell is so bad. I've been inviting presidential candidates to Merrimack for PFAS community discussions, raising awareness both locally and throughout the state. We have had Senator Gillibrand, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, and Representative Chris Pappas. And we have soft confirmation from all of the campaigns, except I have invited candidate Trump and I have invited candidate Weld. I have not heard back from those guys yet. John Delaney will be here on May 10th at 9:30. I'm working on an educational packet about PFAS. I'll be attending a 3-day PFAS conference in Boston, specifically in the role of writer and instructional designer. I'll be bringing a lot of information from that conference back. I am working with Senator Shaheen and Representative Pappas's office to set up a PFAS summit in Washington, D.C., with representatives and senators on pertinent committees and from impacted states. We will be brainstorming ideas that might be used across the nation. I have asked state senators to moderate a meeting between principal players and DES and DHHS to see if we can get some answers to questions that we're not getting answers to. We're working on it. I'm setting up a task force of area reps who will be working together to see what we can do going forward, including legislation, education, and seeing if we can partner with some local businesses. Representative Stack and I will be attending the Sustainability Fair in Wilton to answer questions and inform people. I've been involved in panel discussions for the movie The Devil We Know in Brentwood, Merrimack, and Wilton. I'm working on finding out how much Saint-Gobain pays in taxes to the federal government. This was in direct response to a resident asking if it was worth having Saint-Gobain in town. I'm attending Water Commission meetings at the State House. That's the Water Commission that Councilor Boyd is on. I am not a member, but I am attending as an observer on the recommendation of my committee chair. I've testified at Senate hearing bills I've testified at Senate hearing bills. I've written letters to the editor about PFAS in our town. I'm working with the New Hampshire Veterinary and Medical Society to see if we can create a survey of area vets to quantify small animal impact. I'm working with Senator Shaheen and Representative Pappas to see if there are any federal funds available to give low-interest loans or grants to affected private well owners for filtration. There appears to be a DoD connection to Saint-Gobain. They make the chemical fabric that covers radar domes. And there may be a DoD contract in there. And if that's true, we might be able to have access to DoD money for remediation. I've taken my personal information off of the state website due to threats. All of us are getting threats. I sent a piece of paper on your desk with a copy of, it was a cartoon, and I put that in quotes. That was associated with an article that was a credible threat against Representative Pappas. We constantly get threats. We get threats of violence. We get threats of property damage. We get threats of death. So you have my business cards. You have my cell phone number. I wrote it on the back. You can contact me at any time with any concerns about Merrimack.
Nancy?
Wendy, I feel like I have to respond to you directly because I was one of those people at the meeting. First of all, it was never stated nor intimated questioning your service to Merrimack. So if that was your response to what I said,
Somebody said I did a disservice to the town.
I did.
Okay.
But I'll tell you why. It had nothing to do with what you have done. It doesn't negate all of the things that you've done, and that unfortunately you feel the need to list the things. Your passion and your time and involvement is not a question. When I said that, and I will admit to that, I was disturbed when you said children and pets are dying in Merrimack. Now, and I said this at the time, if you had said, I am concerned that children or pets are dying in Merrimack, I wouldn't have had a problem. That's not what you said. You said children and pets are dying. Might that be proven in the future? Perhaps. Maybe. That's not what you said. And I think it scared a lot of people unnecessarily. That was my whole content to my comments. So all the things that you're saying, it doesn't address what I'm talking about. I reject the comment that you made. And I thought it did a great disservice to Merrimack. And as a rep, I thought, as a counselor, I wouldn't do that. So that's what I'm responding to. That doesn't negate all of the time and effort and passion that you're putting into this. Okay? It's totally different. My comment had to do with that statement, which I still think was irresponsible. That's all.
Thank you for your comment.
Bill?
It's very difficult to follow up Council Harrington because I agree with everything she has to say, Wendy. I actually did concur with Nancy and Councilor, at the time, Chairman Rothhaus also expressed his disappointment at the rhetoric and language that you used. And I certainly want to echo Councilor Harrington's point about not just the service that you've provided to the community, but I can remember years ago when we had an issue about a crowing rooster, and you came in and educated this council about roosters and hens and the husbandry and the practices of raising poultry. It was the most enlightening conversation that you presented to us as a related, and it added value to the conversation that we were debating at that particular time. You could have been at home and not done a darn thing, but no, you took time out of your personal life to come to the council meeting and give us information that was integral and credible to our particular discussion. So I think, and the other point that I'll say is this: I've been on this council now for 8 years, coming up on 9 years. In this past year, I've gotten used to seeing you, Representative Murphy, Representative Stack, and Representative Rung over the last 7 months. Collectively, I think that entire time in 7 months could probably come pretty darn close to the number of times I saw the state reps and the previous state reps and state senators that serve this community coming to this council to have anything to say about what's going on in Concord or to participate with what's going on here. So as far as I'm concerned, you bring a tremendous value and tremendous service to this community. I just had a horrible time with the language that you used. And quite honestly, I said my piece, and I've moved on from it, Wendy, because I don't look at that as a reflection on what you bring to the table day in and day out to the town of Merrimack. I thank you for your service, I really do. And it's been fun working with you on the water issue over the last, from a legislative perspective, over the last 6 months, so it's been fun. So, in conclusion, I concur with Councilor Harrington. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Wendy.
I'll be very quick. Nancy Murphy, representative for Town of Merrimack. I just wanted to mention a couple of things that some of the people from the public mentioned about PFAS. I know on the social media, we use social media to try to communicate with people, and I know I've sent an email to the town council, but just maybe for the public, if anybody's listening, I would ask that House Bill 737 is the House bill that we submitted on behalf of our town. I think Wendy mentioned it's a bill that will establish a commission to look at and determine the full extent of the contamination from St. Gobain to our town, Bedford and Litchfield, and the health impacts associated, and make recommendations for legislation and follow-up. It's something that is really vital to getting a handle on this, because we have a lot of disjointed little efforts and things that are going to happen down the road. But if we want to have accountability and transparency and really have a sense of what we need to do and which agencies need to take which actions, we really need to have this happen. So anything that anybody in the town council could do and the public, there's an actual link. It's very simple. It's on the water issues page. We've got it on every social media page on Facebook right now. So if people could go to that, literally take 1 minute, and please say, that you support this bill, that you're impacted, and that it matters to you. The Senate is hearing this bill right now. They're going to be executing it. We thought it was the other day. I think they're hearing us, and they recognize that it's a need, and I don't think that it won't pass, but I don't know what they're going to do to it, and whether they're, well, you have a lot of people on it. Yes, we do, but we need those people. They're health scientists, environmental scientists. The agencies are looking to have sort of, my words, an opt-out clause, which I've asked that they remove. It was not in my original bill. It was added by DHHS. And I understand in theory what the rationale was, that they're concerned that they may be asked to do things that will cost money that have not been budgeted for, or impact their staff. So my concern is that it says that, well, if they don't have resources, then they don't have to participate. And that's very concerning, because the commission cannot function without those agencies. So anybody that could take that time, please do that. House Bill 737. The other bill, House Bill 736, is the environmentally triggered chronic disease bill that has passed the House and the Senate on consent. And we'll see what happens with that. That's upcoming. And I know, again, it was mentioned that some candidates have been here, and there was discussion after the meeting the other night with Congressman Pappas, that one of the people that it might make sense to come here was the governor. And he was invited. His scheduler is working on a date, and I think that's separate maybe from, an MBD town council thing. But this is more also for the public to have a listen, for him to hear what the public has to say. It's certainly a town hall style event. The only other thing were two House bills, and I think, I'm not sure if Representative Rung's going to be talking about the toll bill. Okay, I won't even mention that. The only other bill that I would mention is Senator Bradley had a bill with Representative Tambucco that was Senate Bill 254. It was appropriating funds to the Department of Environmental Services for the purpose of funding eligible wastewater projects under the state aid grant program. That was heard the other day at the same time the toll bill was there. I did sign in support for our town, realizing that's certainly something that we might benefit from. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Rose. Sure.
Good evening, Town Council. Now we get to talk about tolls and
About what?
traffic lights.
Oh, tolls.
For the record, my name is Rosemarie Rung. I'm a state representative for Merrimack. As Representative Murphy mentioned, on Wednesday, there was a public hearing for Senate Bill 300, which Senator Shannon Chanley is the prime sponsor. It had passed unanimously in the state Senate. Now it has to go through the process in the House. There was a hearing in front of the Public Works and Highways Committee. Representative Barry, Murphy, myself, Shannon Chanley introduced it, and Representative Thomas, we all spoke in favor of it. DOT was there, the Deputy Commissioner, Christopher Washuk. He spoke against it, and I'm distributing his letter. They just feel this is not a time to decrease revenue. And we're challenging him on that based on the fact that the bond is the primary bond, the $9.8 million bond to build the Exit 11 is going to be paid off in March. There's a $400,000 that was included in a bond from 1994, which was landscaping and some improvement, but I don't really see that as, I would challenge DOT on that if they held us to that bond before they took down the tolls. So that the committee is voting on that bill, either to recommend it or to kill it or retain it on Tuesday. So I'll let you know how that goes. So you have that letter from him is going around. I want to update you on what I've done regarding the Executive Park Drive traffic light. After the last town council, I think Councilor Boyd had requested I bring that issue to Concord. So I met with the Deputy Commissioner and the Director of Director of Turnpikes, Mr. John Cochran. We met on Monday with Senator Shanley and Representative Thomas. We were going over the Senate Bill 300. But I also brought up the Executive Park light, and they said they would get back to me on it. They wanted to look into it. And I saw them after the public hearing on yesterday and said, can I give an update to the town council? So he confirmed the accuracy of the email. I wanted just to make sure that my recollection of that meeting yesterday with him was accurate. So I emailed all of you, but I didn't know if some of you saw it. I know that Councilor Boyd saw it, but I'm also distributing a copy of the email that you have in your inbox. And essentially he's saying that they had given a permit of let me just get the right.
Application for encroachment.
Yes, a permit of encroachment to the developer of the development that's going in off of Executive Park Drive, so that developer is going to take over the improvements to that light. It still is going to be owned by the state, but that the developer is going to make all of these improvements. They had to submit a plan to DOT on what those improvements were going to be, and DOT rejected one of the components of the hardware component that was going into that light and notified the developer of that. They're waiting to get the updated plan with the new hardware. They expect that the improvements to that light will occur by the end of the summer. I asked about the permit because that expires the end of June, and they said, oh, well, we would extend that. So that's just the status. I'm the messenger. That's where it stands now. It was also asked of me at the last meeting to look into the plowing situation. And Eileen, I want to thank you for that meeting. My impression of that topic of the meeting was that they see this as a little bit of a conflict between District 5 and the Turnpike, where District 5 has responsibility for the 101A, and the Turnpike has responsibility for the end of Continental Drive. So they're having an all-hands-on-deck DOT meeting next week, and they promised to update me. They're going to raise that as an issue. And I think it will get resolved. Whether it's the Turnpike that plows that right-hand lane or District 5, I don't know yet. But I sent the message that we expect it to be plowed because we can't, otherwise we're expecting people to make that right-hand turn, which would be illegal because they'd be going up into the intersection. And the map you gave me, Eileen, was very helpful in the photos because it did show that they've taken responsibility for paving in the area that we want them to take responsibility for plowing. So that's where that stands. I'll let you know. They promised to get back in touch by the end of next week. And then the last topic that I want to say is I remember Paul had brought up a while ago some issues, the way, and Eileen, we spoke about it when we met on Friday, the way that capital reserve funds are presented to the voters, that now we have to present them each as a separate warrant article. So I had sent a message to DRA about that. They gave me a response. I sent it to Paul, and Paul and I are going to meet Monday. Is Monday afternoon good? Right. We were just communicating today about it. So I just wanted to let you know I'm following up on that. And the thing is, I think they're trying to kill me by statute because his email reply just had these statute, and I just couldn't deal with that right then. So Paul and I are going to sift through it on Monday, and so that's still ongoing. So any questions? I'd be happy to.
Peter?
Rose, Representative Rung, thank you
Yeah.
very much, and I want to thank all the representatives, because level of communication has been awesome. We've been getting your email. I particularly got your email regarding the widening of the F.E. Everett Turnpike, the link, and I'm going to recommend to everybody in this room, everybody watching, go to that link, especially if you live along the Turnpike, and look at specifically at the barriers and site barriers that they want to put up. And I know, Representative Rung, you kind of forewarned us that they only have so much money in the budget for this. Now, there was, I think, a total of possibly 24 sites along Merrimack on the Turnpike.
There's 7 in Merrimack that
There's 7 that are going to get barriers.
Right.
But there's a large number of neighborhoods that aren't. And what's bothering me is, and this is no reflection on you, I'm trying to really put it out there, for everybody to reach out to your legislators and senators and the DOT. But there are neighborhoods that surprised me, Clay Street, the Davis Road area, that aren't going to get a barrier. And when you widen that highway on each side by 40 or 50 feet, you're almost in these folks' backyard. And what I read was the reason was they're proposing the barriers are going to be berms, 15 to 16 feet high, and anywhere from 900 to, I think, 1,300 feet long. But the threshold to put these berms in these areas is too small. So that's why they're not going to do it. Well, then the time is now to start lobbying and to start doing whatever we have to do to get the funding in for 2 years from now to put other forms of sight and sound barriers. They have them up along Manchester, in Manchester and Nashua, where those homes are situated right along there. So I think it's very important that we talk about this now. The squeaky wheel, get the grease. Let's do this, because I get it. There's some neighborhoods, there were clearly the 7 neighborhoods that deserve it, but there are a number of neighborhoods that shocked me that weren't on there, because they're, and it was almost comical that, well, that's because you're too close to the turnpike and there's not enough room. So what does that tell you? So, I think it's important that we get that out there, the word out to the folks, and I thank you, and I'd like to see that link put on the website as well. So any chance we get, because if you don't, the DOT is very tough to work with, and I think, I think everybody's finding that out, that it's gone north, so
Yeah,
thank you for your efforts, all of you.
Thank you, Councilor Albert. Let me give you a couple updates. At the last meeting, I mentioned that there are dozens of projects around the state that are deserving. They meet the threshold for noise abatement, but there was no funding. I brought that up to the Deputy Commissioner. He said, no, the ones in Merrimack are funded through the Turnpike. The other ones that aren't funded either are on a highway, but the cost of the Turnpike widening does include, so those neighborhoods will get it. Clay Street is going to get it. Initially, they were denied, but there was an error in the way that the measurements, the decibel measurements were taken. And I give a lot of credit to the neighborhood, some of the neighbors in that area, because they challenged DOT on it and had the remeasurements taken that did show that they qualified. My neighborhood, the Davis Road neighborhood, we challenged it too and went through. We just don't have the number of houses. DOT would have to change that formula, and I don't know if that's by statute or rulemaking, but we would have to double the number of homes to meet it. You could have a home that is going to have their noise level double or tripled. But if it's the only home there, it doesn't meet their cost-benefit analysis. So, and I did talk to him about the need, that we really need to have a good relationship between the community and DOT during this whole widening project, because it is going to be disruptive. And I was also concerned that if the toll at exit 11 remained, it would give people one more reason not to get on the turnpike and further clog our local streets. So it's just the conversation's going. This was the first meeting I had met him, so we'll see how it goes.
And that's why I want to jump on it now and keep going with it, because I just think some people are going to get left out. And if the funding's not there, then maybe somebody can propose a bill to add that funding before 2021. So,
Yeah,
just a
okay.
thought. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And one more thing, Counselor Albert, you did also bring up the need for bill reform regarding some of the issues. And actually, there are a couple bills that are making their way through the House now from the Senate regarding that. I need to do more research, but I'll get you that information.
Thanks. Oh,
Okay.
very badly needed.
Yes. Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Bill, there was a couple more questions, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Bill?
When you and I spoke, I said there were 3 desirable outcomes. One, they keep the light, they synchronize. Number 2, they give us the light, we synchronize. Number 3, we tear it down. If they are really hell-bent on wanting to keep the light, did you happen to ask the question why they are struggling to not synchronize the signalization?
Yes, I gave him those 3 options. I said, ideally, our first preference would be to have the light synchronized. And second is we take over the light or we disable the light. He said, as far as the synchronization, it's all in the hands of the developer, that permit gives them authority to do that work, that they can't step in until the permit is denied. He also, until the permit expires. I also spoke to him about the incredible safety issues that light creates, and that it is of such an urgent matter that I would recommend that we step in and just almost declare force majeure, that they just take their authority away. I want to set up a meeting with the chief, the police chief, to get some data that I can present, because they use safety data to justify widening roads. And I'm going to show them the safety data of that area, and that if safety is such a concern that to you that we justify road widening or things, it should be a concern about synchronizing a light. But
If they really care about safety, why do we have traffic backing up at 5 o'clock at night and going all the way back down to DW Highway and causing accidents and backing up traffic coming on and off of the turnpike? It's insane. And you're the messenger, and I apologize for raising my
Yeah.
voice, but I absolutely take umbrage with what they told you, that it's in the hands of the developers, because in the email that you wrote to me here in the 3rd paragraph, the developer submitted a plan to the DOT for improvements. However, the DOT rejected a physical component of the plan. So if you're rejecting the physical component of the plan, you haven't given up situs to that particular location. So how come you can't synchronize the lights? I feel like I'm on the verge of having an agenda item on this council to get council approval to have Eileen go to the DPW so I can send a bulldozer down there to knock it down. And I shouldn't have to go that way, but if I have to do that, I will.
Yeah.
If they're concerned about safety, they need to fix the problem before somebody gets hurt down there.
I agree. Did you happen to look at the link that I put in the email?
I looked at everything very
Oh,
quickly
okay.
that you gave me,
Because I
Rosemary.
found, when I was doing some research on this, I did find where the developer explained what needed to be done and the upgrades, the specific upgrades to the light. I was more assured by the developer and more confident the developer could make the improvements than I am of DOT.
But if the developer's hands are tied because DOT doesn't like, that they want to use a stainless steel screw versus a titanium screw, and therefore we're going to, it's more bureaucratic oversight on something that, quite honestly, if they really want to keep the light and they want to do something, that peer-to-peer signalization, which I understand, I get, Why can't they just do it as a stopgap measure in the interim while that project, while all of the work is being done by the developer in concert with it? Why can't they just do it as a temporary
I
stopgap?
actually suggested that, and they said, no, they can't do anything about it because of they've permitted this encroachment by the developer. So the developer does all the work on it.
But DOT has the final say as to what they do on the encroachment. Love it.
Yeah, they have to
That's
approve
just-
the specifics of the project.
It's insanity. I apologize, Mr. Chairman, thank you.
It may be worthwhile for the planning board to ask the developer for an upgrade on that section, since it was part of the plan submitted to the planning board.
Because I sat on the planning board and we voted
Mhm.
on that,
Mhm.
I don't understand what you're going after at that point.
Well, because if the improvements to the light are part of the application to the planning board, and
Yes.
I forget the date of that meeting, Tom,
don't
but
know
it's,
either.
the link is in there. It was the developer, I think his name is Paul Plord or John Plord, went into a lot of specifics
Right.
about improvements to that intersection that they were going to make. I don't know, I haven't been on a planning board, but it may be worthwhile, the chairman of the planning board calling him and say, could you give us an update on that the improvement, the traffic light improvements that you discussed at that meeting? And let them know to stay on it, because right now the ball's in their court. They have to get back to DOT with a new piece of hardware to
Okay.
include in their
I mean,
improvements.
I certainly will bring it up with the chairman and with our community development director to see if there's any kind of communications that we can do. But I think once we've signed off on the plan, it becomes not a planning board issue unless there's a change to the plan or something like that. I know that they went through extensive discussions with the planning board about what they were going to do with that peer-to-peer program. And from the traffic engineers and things like that presented to us, it was much better than any possible synchronization could be. And part of the problem with synchronization, besides all the cost of trying to get it and get it right, is that if any piece breaks, the whole thing breaks. And there are so many times you'll find lights all over New Hampshire where a loop in the road is broken, and now that light is totally unsynchronized for at least one lane of traffic. And I can give an example specific of Elm Street and Granite in Manchester, because I know that one's got busted lines, and I've had traffic engineers tell me that there are bad loops there, because I've seen huge amounts of time with no traffic going, because it's just not paying attention anymore for the traffic on Granite. Those situations are not infallible, but I think the developer has got a good opportunity there, and I think the state is actually pretty excited to see what they're going to do. I'm a little surprised they are hung up on a specific component, and I suspect that that'll be ironed out. But I'll certainly see if the planning board has any input or emphasis to try and go forward with that, or whoever's our upcoming representative to the planning board can do that.
Okay.
But I appreciate your efforts, and
Okay.
I know that situation is being addressed through the developer, and that I think will make it much better. It won't make it perfect. Nothing's going to make that situation perfect. But we are going in the right direction.
Okay.
But thanks for your effort.
Okay, I'll keep you updated. Thank you.
Nancy?
Oh, any other
Just one
questions?
quick
Oh, sorry.
suggestion. I think we should, thank you. I think as a town council, we should send a letter to DOT responding to the information that we received about that lack of noise abatement for those neighborhoods. Might not do anything, but we should be able to adjust, recent communication received. It is clear that these named in the streets are not designated. We would expect provisions to be made since it is a requirement, blah, blah, whatever we can say.
Is that a motion?
I will say that as a motion if it need be.
Second.
Okay, just for my benefits, motion to write a letter to
To write a letter
DOT.
to DOT related to the lack of noise abatements to the specific neighborhoods that will be affected by the widening of the highway.
And that's a letter from the council.
Correct.
And
Okay.
Nancy, you're right. You mentioned earlier, I think the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And that's the sense I get from working with DOT.
Can't say.
That even if something's out of their, the
No
more
harm,
they
no
hear,
foul.
but more you stay on their radar, the more they'll pay attention to you.
Do you want to add any more to that?
No, I think that's appropriate. I mean, we want to be specific. We want to relate to the communication that we've already received so that they know that we're following it very and we appreciate, for example, the planned neighborhoods that are going to receive the abatements, however, that kind of stuff.
So can I suggest that as part of that, Nancy and Peter are going to help to author that letter?
That's fine with me?
Absolutely.
Any other discussion on that motion? Seeing none, I'll call it for a vote. It was a motion by Nancy and seconded by Bill Boyd. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstaining? So that passes 6-0-0. Bill?
And just very quickly, when you reach out to Chief Roy for that data, do you mind sharing that with the council?
Oh,
'Cause I think we'd
absolutely.
be very curious.
Absolutely.
If that's okay, Eileen. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
Representative.
Okay, seeing no more reps or senators in the audience. Town managers report.
As part of the budget in the past year, the town council had approved money for a space needs study for a proposed public safety complex on Continental Boulevard, on the Continental Boulevard property. We have engaged with a company called Shear McChrystal Palson Architecture. And on Tuesday, April 30th, there will be representatives from North Point Engineering at the Continental Boulevard property to walk the property and scout for wetlands as part of the space needs study. And just as a note, $50,000 was budgeted, and the contract was for $25,000. On May 7th, we'll be having a kickoff meeting with the town's consultant, again, with Shear McChrystal Paulson Architecture, again, about the space needs study, along with both the police and fire departments to begin to determine the space needed for the safety complex. And I will be there to
Corral
round everybody in.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is that it? Thank you.
Bless you.
Any questions of the town manager? Yes.
I had a chance to go over to Station 3, Fire Station 3, or the North Station, to look at the condition of the building. Not that I'm a building person, but all the apparatus and the trailers and all those kinds of things are moved out of the building and off to the side. I walked through, nothing bit me.
You didn't see any critters?
No critters.
No welcoming committee?
No.
Oh, that's too bad.
So what it appears to be, and I just say this from my own layman's terms, you have a foundation, and then you have, it's almost like corrugated metal that goes, that kind of waves in and out, and the critters are getting up through those. So we are trying to develop a plan and give you some decisions whether, consequently, we're not using the station at all, because it was just being used for storage anyway, and the other apparatus that was there are at the highway garage, at no, no lack of service given. So I guess what I would like to know is, do you want to go ahead with a $16,000 fix, which would basically be to fill in those spots underneath the corrugated metal, and eradicate the pests, or do you want to get into a whole project where it becomes a bit more beautified, and not beautified, but I guess So, new doors, new siding, new windows, and that kind of thing. It's not an extraordinarily expensive cost. It's probably going to be about $75,000, which I don't say that lightly, as you know. But if we're going to keep it as a building, and if it's going to be a town building, it should not look dilapidated.
So does it make sense to put that on a future agenda item to rediscuss this item, or?
I think so,
Okay.
yeah.
Peter?
Eileen, is there, and I know we brought it up at the last discussion when the fire chief was here, but did we ever research, one, the value of that property, as well as if it could be sold?
Yes, we did, and it cannot.
Okay.
Barbara?
Thank you. And also, it should include, the proposal should include being able to use the grant funds.
Yep.
Did you reach out to Mr. Flatley by any chance?
Not a good time.
Fair enough. Thank you, thank you, Madam Manager.
Okay. Are we good now? Any other questions? No?
Yeah, how was the Easter egg roll?
I was looking for a report from Matt Kasparius, and he has 2 little kids, and they're on vacation
They're
this
on
week, so
vacation
he
this
wasn't there. Peter apparently has something to say about that.
Yeah, they came up at the Parks and Rec meeting, that I'm part of that committee. 800 kids.
Awesome. Awesome.
That's a lot of kids.
That is.
They did them in waves, so it wasn't one just, thank God. We have to call a lot of fire departments
Try
and
to park that
ambulances.
many
for-
families down there.
No, but I guess it was very successful, and they were all very happy, but I was
That's
shocked at the
awesome.
number of kids, too.
Very good. Okay, before I extend this any further, we have no consent agenda. That brings us to old business, and our first item under old business is the solar panel assessment discussion. The town council will be presented with information regarding how solar panels are assessed in the town of Merrimack. We have our town assessor available to help us understand. Thank you for showing up, Lauren, for coming. Go ahead, Eileen.
So, as everybody is aware here that is here interested in the solar panel discussion, the council at the last council meeting wanted to talk about whether or not to endorse or go through some method by which to offer a solar exemption. And during the course of that discussion and the questions from the public, they wanted to know how our assessing department goes about assessing property, the solar amenity and solar panels. So that's where we are today. And it's, if you pardon me for saying so, it's really needs to be a conversation between the council and Lauren, if that's okay.
Right, sure, thank you. Lauren,
Hi.
thanks for showing up, for coming.
How are you this evening?
I'm doing great, thanks.
Good. So I provided you some information. I didn't think I was going to be able to have that ready for tonight's meeting, or I would have gotten it to you ahead of time, but I was able to prepare some information today while I was here. I know that some information regarding the solar was presented to the council before, and it appears some of that was not 100% accurate, so I wanted to make sure you have all the correct information in front of you. In trying to get the information about solar panels and the associated value with that, it appears that all of the features that were noted on the card got in that total. So I think it was reported previously that the solar panels in town on all of the properties totaled 2.6 million-ish, yeah. And so if you turn to the last page of that spreadsheet I provided you, you'd see that that actual total is 1,855,700. So a a little bit off from what was originally reported to you. There was also some information that was, that it was strictly residential properties and not commercial. And that is not correct. And I think we have 4 properties that are actually commercial that have solar panels on them. And in our original submission to you, because those properties are valued via the income approach, the solar panels are valued at 0 in the system because their method of assessment is slightly different. So those commercial properties did not show up on the original list, and I just wanted to point that out and apologize for that oversight. So I compiled this whole list for you, probably way more information than you ever need or want to know about solar. And it appeared, I mean, we've been discussing this for, I don't know, probably 5 years now.
It has been a while, yeah.
At least a half a dozen visits before you to explain it, but back again, try to answer some questions and hopefully present how we valued it. We had gone through, if you're to look at this list, what I did so that you could have some understanding about solar, I came to you probably 2014-15 about it the first times, talking about it because we were going to begin assessing solar in 2016 with the townwide update. If you look at the column on that spreadsheet that says permit date or install date, you'll note largely that majority of our solar installations came in 2016 forward. There was a big surge for solar. We started seeing it in 14 and 15. We knew we were going to have to address it. The State of New Hampshire Department of Revenue has been to our Assessors Association, has presented in front of the Assessing Standards Board at the state about the need to assess solar statewide. It's a fixture to the property, has to be considered, and they're going through the process to make sure all communities are doing that. So we were very proactive with this, and we had been collecting data on it and knew that we had to assess it, hence why I came to you early on to see if you wanted to entertain an exemption or not. I think as I told you back then, it doesn't matter to me. I'm not going to give you my opinion on the matter. It's something that you as a town council have to decide on, but it's not something that I have any stake in the game, so I reserve my opinion on that. But want you to have all the facts so that you can make that decision properly. So I've put this all together for you, and when we first started valuing this, there's 3 methods of assessment. And you look at an income approach to value, a sales comparison approach to value, or a cost approach. None of these are income producing, or some of them may be income producing properties, but the solar installation is not an income producing entity for them. So the income approach would not work on that component of the assessment. So that leaves us with the sales comparison approach and the cost approach. When we implemented this assessment for solar in 2016, given the number of installations that were in late 2015 forward, there was no sales data. So it's difficult to rely on a sales comparison approach lacking any sales. So we went out to the market, we gathered information about the average cost of the solar panels. At that time when we did that, the average cost was about $1,100 per panel installed. But we recognized that participants in the market would not pay to put a solar installation on their property if they had to pay the full amount of that. There's incentives both through the local electric companies, the state government, the federal government through tax credits and incentives, and it's those credits and those incentives that have made solar an option for many participants. So in recognizing a cost approach, we couldn't just value them at $1,100 a panel and not recognize that participants would not put these on without those credits. So essentially in that cost approach, we've reduced the cost per panel in recognition of those outside incentives. And the assessment on those is at $600 per panel. We have a the next page in that packet, and I've got some scribble on it just so you can see, but we have a depreciation model there. Majority of the solar systems that are assessed in Merrimack are within the 1 to 5 year range and have no depreciation on them yet. When we update during our next townwide update, based on the age of those installations, those would start to see the depreciation on it. We have a few that are on there that are depreciated, but not many. As you go down that list and you look at the age of them, there's not many old ones. And I did note that 5 of the ones, there was only 6 that predate 2011. And 5 of those were very old. We've estimated dates of installation, and they're largely water systems. A couple of panels for a water system on a roof. They're not the PV panels we're seeing today. So I also went through and compiled all the sales that we have on all of these properties that were sales that took place after the solar panel installation. And there were only 5 of the 112 properties that have sold since they've put the panels on. 4 of those sales, once you equalize the assessment, which I've put on there for you as well, indicate that the value that we arrived at for those panels is supported by those sales. 1, even though I didn't like it, it's on there. That first sale, which is 5 May Drive. And that property sold in 2018 for $255,000, and the equalized assessment was $293,500. I included that MLS listing sheet in there for you as well, along with the others that I had, so that you could see that that property was is definitely an outlier in those sales and had a very limited marketing. It was only on the market for 3 days, and actually sold for $10,000 above its asking price, which tends to lead me to believe it was put on to try to elicit offers and move quickly. So we don't have any other circumstances behind that sale, but it would be an outlier. I also provide you all the MLS listing sheets. And I understood that at the last meeting there was some comment from some realtor or a realtor that indicated solar does not add value. So I wanted to provide some of these MLS listing sheets, and I've highlighted that information so you can see that it's being marketed as a saleable feature. If you're to look at that first one on 99 Joppa Road, solar installed 2 years ago, 25-year warranty that drastically reduces the monthly electric bill. July's electric bill with the AC running was under $14. Solar panels are owned, not leased. The second one says, you will enjoy the up to 1/3 savings on your electric bill with discreetly hidden earth-saving solar panels. The 25 McElwain Street, and all this in solar panels. Please note, solar panels are a transferable lease. So that was another thing we had talked about, I think, a few years back, is the difference between owned panels versus leased panels. And obviously on those leases, it's going to depend on the terms of that lease. Most that we've seen are transferable, but I haven't reviewed every lease, so I wouldn't want to tell you I know all that. I put in there the LoopNet listing for the Daniel Webster Highway property that's sold. And while there's nothing specifically in that listing that I found that stated anything about the solar panel, this is a 121,000 square foot building and is noted in there to be 100% air conditioned. If I were going to buy that property and operate air conditioning in 121,000 square feet and I don't have to pay for the electric bill, that's a pretty good incentive for marketing that property. So I just wanted you to have all the information that I have and be here to answer any questions that you have of me, that I can help guide you in any way, shape, or form in making whatever decisions you have to make regarding that.
Okay, just real quick, I'd like to ask, the $600 number that you came up with, is that still current, or do you have to wait till the 5-year reval before you could adjust that? I mean, prices have come down, but the rebates are dropping as well. So even if you were to keep going by the cost analysis project that you, or process that you started with, you came up with 600 based on an $1,100 cost.
Correct.
Are they still costing those kinds of numbers, or?
I can't tell you. I have not investigated it recently. When we value property, we determine that as of a certain date and time. At this time, it was April 1st, 2016. And those specific changes, as the market does change, we wouldn't necessarily change anything until the next townwide update for those type of global, that would impact a large group like that globally.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Barbara,
welcome.
did you have a question?
Yeah. I have a couple, thank you. So I was doing some research in between, and I found the same that you did, that according to the Department of Energy and the Appraisers Institute, that solar panels does increase the value, especially on resale of the house. Now, it may cause some issues if, in fact, your prospective buyers do not want to enter into or pick up a lease agreement versus the totally owned. So I guess my question is there a difference in the appraisal process when you're looking at those folks who put the outlay out to buy the panels and the equipment versus those that are only leasing it? Because technically, as we heard from some folks, they can actually say, no, I don't want to, and you must remove the panels from the house. So it's not like it's a permanent feature to the house by any means.
No.
So does that make a difference in the appraisal formula?
It doesn't. The fact that it is attached to the real estate is what makes it taxable.
Okay.
And much like a lot of things in your house that can be removed, it generally stays with the property and would transfer. And it could come off, just like your shed could come off.
Okay.
The other thing I look at, not every item that is assessed is or has a value add to everybody. I use swimming pools as a big example because you'll hear a lot of realtors tell you that swimming pools do not add value. We pick them up and we assess them and we add value to them. They're on the property, and there will be a time with some pools that they don't add anything to the value. I think it changes the market participants with a lot of that. You see pools add value to one person and not another. If you don't want a pool or you have small children that you're afraid of that, you may not choose it. So it may change who's willing to buy that property. But I don't think it necessarily changes the underlying value with it. So we don't use there's no different methodology between that.
Okay, and if you have a house that has Tesla shingles on it, how are those appraised?
I'm not aware of any in Merrimack right now, but whether it's Tesla, roof shingles that are providing the same type of system, they would be assessed as well as the new Tesla battery whole house systems that are being used to store energy and then use it much like a whole house generator. They'd be assessed the same way.
And for the depreciation of the panels themselves, it takes 5 years to depreciate. Is that standard in the industry, or is there a way to actually do a depreciation every year because it is a computer program? So
The problem is that we value as of a certain date. So your home also depreciates, your mobile home, anything depreciates. But we create a model and it's static as of that date, and it only changes when you change the entire town. So to only change the depreciation model, say on solar panels, and not everybody's home or everybody's shed, would cause a disproportionality. So I won't say it's only once every 5 years. If we decided to update values this year, which I may be before you sooner than later asking that, you would bring things to market value as needed. So it may not have it. By law, you only have to do it once every 5 years. Okay. But it could be more sooner, but it should be based on everybody, not just one specific item.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Peter?
Lauren, thank you. Got a question. Avatar, your Avatar is the company you work with, right?
It is.
How many communities do they represent?
We do assessing in about 70 communities in the state, and our software's in about 165-ish.
Can you tell me how many of those communities have solar exemptions?
Off the top of my head. No, a lot have adopted solar. The state does keep track of that information because it's reported annually on the MS1. And I'd be happy to look into that to give you a complete and updated list from the state. But a good portion of our communities, it's probably a mix, that 50-50 maybe, of our communities that have an exemption.
Yeah, now, is this something new that these communities are starting to do, or are you finding this has been going on, these exemptions have been going on for a while?
There's a mix. A lot of I think the statutes date back to the 70s regarding wind, solar, and wood. So there was a surge of those initially when that was out for local adoption back in the late 70s, early 80s, that communities that voted it in. And then with this latest surge, we saw a lot of communities starting to relook at it and decide whether they want to. And I've heard from both sides of the fence on it. Some communities say, we're not going to exempt it. We pick up your kitchen if you renovate it. We pick up your bathroom if you add it. And if you put solar, we'll assess that as well. So we're not going to exempt it. And then I have others on the other side of the fence that feel it's green and they want to promote that, and they adopt an exemption either for the full amount or a portion thereof. But it's really dependent on the community. I don't know that there's really, that I can say that everybody thinks the same on it. It's kind of a mixed bag of emotion on it.
Okay. I'm just curious, maybe you could forward that information to the town manager on the,
On all of the exemptions.
yeah, just a
Sure.
number.
We did get it.
Oh, you did, okay.
We got it.
All right, I didn't have that form in front of me.
Right.
Okay.
I can
Oh, I
check,
don't
I can
either.
check for an
All right,
updated
but-
one as well,
all right.
because we might have had some new ones added through this last town meeting across the state, so I can check for
And
that.
just one constructive criticism, I know your information, appreciate you being here, and I know you're busy. I'll tell you, a PowerPoint presentation for something like this would be great for the folks at home and stuff
Okay.
like that, to see some of this good information you're putting out, that's all.
Okay.
Thank
And I
you.
did leave some here for anybody who's
Yeah,
here who
it's there
wants
for
it.
anybody who needs a copy, though.
Absolutely. And we could also, I could make sure that we scan that and put it up on the website as well.
Thank you.
That would
You're
be
welcome.
awesome. Nancy?
Hi, quick question.
Sure.
You mentioned $600 a panel.
Yep.
You do the other towns. Do you assess $600 a panel for those towns?
Yes.
Okay. What about other assessors? Do you have any idea, or is that a fairly standard?
I don't want to say that's a fairly standard, no. I know other communities are assessing solar. How they're assessing
Okay.
it, I don't. I mean, we all have learned the same information and gathered the same information, but I wouldn't say that we're all
Okay. So all
applying
of
it
the
the
towns
same.
that you do,
Yes,
you use the criteria of $600 per panel as part of the assessment?
correct.
And
And then we
there-
would test it locally through whatever sales information we have that's happened
To
subsequent to
verify or
that.
not?
Correct.
Okay. And one of the things, Pete, just to let you know, and it backs up what you said, the list of exemption, the towns, is dramatically different than it was, 3 years ago?
Yep.
Because I remember getting that list and being surprised at how many more. So that's, yeah.
The other thing that's important to note too is a lot of those initial adoptions of solar back when it first came out were based on cost.
Correct.
And so some of those communities that did adopt it based on cost are now changing that to be based on the assessed value of the same. Because you could spend $100,000 on a solar system that may have only been assessed at, $14,000. So that was not really, it didn't make a lot of sense. The whole idea initially was to help defray the cost. And because the cost is down on those and they're getting the benefit from incentives and rebates and things of that nature, it didn't make sense any longer under today's structure to exempt it based on cost.
See, part of the counter argument, though, is if you're leasing it, the homeowner isn't getting any rebate. It's the company that is leasing you.
Correct. They're getting, right.
They're getting the
it.
benefit, all
You're
of the
getting
tax
the-
rate base.
Right, and you're getting the benefit of the reduced or
But
electric.
that's a business relationship decision. So I think that's, I'm sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, that's okay. Just that with those, they're getting the benefit of the electric savings. They're not getting the rebate for the cost because they didn't lay that cost out up front, but they get the benefit of the electric savings.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I totally agree. That's all. I'm all done.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lauren, thank you for coming tonight. Appreciate it. Thank you for the information. The expanded owner index, how up to date is this
As of this morning.
as of this morning?
And there is one property that is not on that yet because I have not entered the assessment yet for it.
Okay,
But that is up to date with everything but that one property.
okay, so with that, one,
Yes.
out of the 7,000 some odd parcels roughly that exist in Merrimack that are
Almost
assessed.
11,000.
11,000.
Yeah.
So 110 have solar,
112, yep.
112.
Now
Okay.
113 that I haven't added. Yep.
Okay, so based on that, the question that I have is, do you find it problematic when an owner of solar makes an application for an abatement to you because of potentially not having the correct amount of comps available to you to do a fair analysis as to whether a property owner qualifies for an abatement, specifically as it relates to solar?
That's kind of a loaded question, but we've only had 2 abatements, just so you know, and I highlighted those for you as well because I did look back. So we had 1 abatement in 2016 on one of these properties, and we had 1 abatement in 2017. In both of those applications, there was not a mention of solar being a concern or an issue. They filed an abatement for other issues. They have the same information I have, I guess. So when we're looking at that, I'm never really looking at any one component of the assessment, because if you're disputing the value of your property, it's the total value of the property that's under appeal, not one puzzle piece. It's the whole value. And when we look at sales and adjust for those differences between them, even if there's not solar, in an appreciating market like we've seen here in Merrimack, and looking at the sales that do support what we have on there, I would consider all of that information in any abatement that somebody was looking at, but I wouldn't be looking at any one component of the value, just the totality of it.
Okay, because one of the abatements was filed in 2016, but the install date is 2019 for the solar. So really, there's only one abatement that's applicable where solar was put in prior to the abatement year of 2017.
Correct.
Okay, so that being said, when, since you factor in the big picture, you're not focusing on one particular component of the realty, you're looking at the entire realty. You're not factoring into any depreciation that may have existed or is existing on the solar array that's on the property.
I'm not looking at depreciation other than what is already being depreciated on the assessment, and looking at that equalized assessment, because the
Well,
changes in the market have affected all properties.
Let me rephrase that.
Okay.
When you do a reval every 5 years, and let's say somebody's had a solar array on their property for just round number, 10 years. Okay, you would factor in, based on the handout you gave us regarding solar panels, you would factor that condition at a factor of 8. Is that 85% or just a factor of 85?
That would be a factor of 85 on that, so it'd
Okay.
reduce it 15%.
Reduce it 15%?
Right.
Okay,
And that is the model that we developed for the 16 updated values. As we get more data, if that depreciation model isn't working or the cost per panel is low or high, we would evaluate that every time we updated values for the town, just like we evaluate the value of a garage or a pool or the house. It's it's re-looking at all of that every time we update values.
But it is conceivable for a property owner to say, I disagree
Absolutely.
with your depreciation factor, and therefore could apply for an abatement based on how the town is depreciating the solar versus how he or she may be depreciating.
No,
No.
because it's the total value of their property. So to look at the value of their shed or the value of their, any given component on their record card. If I overvalued one component, but maybe undervalued something else on the record, as long as that total value equalized is market value, they would not be entitled to an abatement because of an overvaluation of one item on their record.
Okay.
How do we help the customers to understand that?
Yeah. That was my next one.
I mean, I understand what you're saying, and I understand that it's the total value. but-
Right.
And I'm sorry, obviously, if they're looking at those components, and I look at them, I have a chimney, I have a deck, and I have these things, and they're valued at some number on my house. These people have solar panels on their house, and it's valued at some number.
Right, but without understanding, I guess, the value of every component,
Right.
to say this one is overvalued, without knowing if everything else is overvalued, there's not an issue necessarily. So the only way for somebody to really break it down to those components, and while we put it all there for them to look at that information, if you say my solar panels are overvalued, and we looked at it and I say, okay, well, we have your shed at $1,200. You just bought that for $5,000, and you'd have to literally go through every single component to see if it was truly disproportionately assessed. And that's why the courts have held that you have to look at the total market value. And it's difficult because as assessors, we're charged with putting one assessment on a property as of a given date. And more realistically, as all of you probably know, if you put a property on the market, what I'm willing to pay may be different than what you're willing to pay. And there's more realistically a range of values that a property could bring in the market, depending on the pool of buyers at the time, depending on the interest rates and all those things. So when we go to defend an assessment, say, before the Board of Tax and Land Appeals, oftentimes, if the two opinions are within 10%, which is generally an industry standard, they're deemed complementary. So if I'm willing to pay $200,000 for a property and Bill's willing to pay $220,000, they're both generally supportive of one another, and there's not really an indication that there's an issue with either. But that's the difficulty, is we have to put one number on it for assessment purposes. So that sway is not necessarily, it's hard to pinpoint, one component of that and see if you're out of line because of that one component without knowing all of them.
Okay. Thank you for the
You're welcome.
additional information. Yeah, Nancy?
One other question. You mentioned the Assessing Standards Board.
Yep.
Is it my understanding that they told all the assessors that they have to include solar panels as an assessment variable?
The Assessing Standards Board did not make that determination,
Okay.
nor do we make that determination. It was the Department of Revenue who
That's right.
monitors all of the assessments in the state that has come before the New Hampshire Assessors Association.
That's what it is. Okay.
As well as the Assessing Standards Board, to try to educate everyone that it's a feature that has to be considered in the assessment.
Okay, so the DRA
Yes,
is basically telling all assessors, you have to deal with it somehow.
exactly.
Gotcha. Okay.
So no one out there really gives you a clear-cut idea how to do
Gotcha.
that.
Yeah.
That's why we're the experts at that. You're supposed to be able to do your own homework. They just tell you what you have to pick up
Okay.
and what you have to
So
consider,
it's a
and you
mandated
can't
criteria.
by law. Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Wonderful. Barb?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, that it doesn't matter if the solar array is on your roof or if it's in your back acre, set up on frames. It's still on your property and it still gets assessed.
Correct.
Okay. And just for the folks at home, because we have some houses here that have, these long rectangular panels that are made up of 3 sections.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have others like this one that, they're just one big, cover the entire roof. What's the definition of a panel? So that
I don't know that
everybody
we've
is
defined
talking
it.
about the same thing. It's not that long rectangular thing. Is it? Or is it the sections that make up the long
It's
rectangular
all those
thing?
little, it's all of those little sections, or
Okay.
those individual panels, right?
Yeah, just in
Um,
case anybody's out there who's wondering, what is
It's
a
pretty
panel?
standard on the new installations. I mean, you might see some different size panels and capacity panels on some of those old systems, but the new ones are pretty standard size,
Mhm.
and they'll vary. Some are 2x3, some are 3x4. Or, you know, they're all generally in that vicinity
Mhm.
with similar output capacity.
Thank you.
So-
You're welcome.
So wouldn't it be output capacity that would be the measure as opposed to the size of the panel? I mean,
When we're visiting a property,
Yeah.
we don't know the capacity. And each panel, because it does generate a similar capacity and we can count them, it is easier to keep track of that data because the capacity is not always reported on that. And while the field staff is out collecting it, we don't always know that. So that's why we chose to institute it on a per panel basis for ease of data collection.
okay. Any other questions? It's an interesting issue.
It is very
Obviously,
interesting.
we're going through it the second or third time, and we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. If there's anything else I could provide other than what I put on here that I'll take care of for you, let me know. Happy to
you.
get you anything else.
Okay. Thank you very much, Lauren.
You're very
Appreciate
welcome,
it.
and I apologize for the oversight on the original submissions, and please let me know if there's anything else I could do.
Maybe
We will do that.
Maybe it could set up as a separate agenda item.
Yeah, I think we need to talk
Because
about
I'd
it.
like to make oh, good idea, good point.
Mr. Chairman? So I guess, I'm not sure where we go on this. I know that it's my hope that we keep moving forward and on this issue, and so I don't know what do we make a plan at this point on?
I'm not really prepared to make a plan at this point, but I am willing to suggest that further on in the agenda, we're going to talk about our annual retreat, where we usually talk about what we want to do in the year and where we want to go and what kind of things, what vision we have for the town. And I think that would be an excellent subject for us to discuss amongst the council, and take input if anybody has additional input they want to offer, but to decide what's the best way to proceed with this as far as whether we.
Okay, and I
Move
guess
forward
maybe
with
for the
it.
folks at home, they may not know what the retreat is and when it happens, so, I don't know.
Neither do we. We know what the retreat is, we just don't know when it happens. It's on our agenda later to discuss, and it usually happens in late May or June. And it will certainly be an agenda item.
And that's basically where the
Noticed
town
agenda
meets, the council meets with the town staff for 8 hours. We discuss all the various goals and objectives going forward, and this will obviously be one of the topics.
Right.
And has been.
And moving forward for the rest of the year.
Yeah, we prioritize what we want to deal with, what can have to wait a year or whatever, so.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving into new business, we have a discussion on the condition of Old Blood Road. A resident of Old Blood Road is asked to speak with the town council about the condition of Old Blood. And you were Stephen
Yes, my name is Stefan De
Stefan
Penasi.
DePanasi, okay,
I
thank
live
you.
in Old Blood Road, number 11. I'm happy to say that the security in Merrimack has improved, and when I moved here in the first couple of years, the Old Blood Road sign has been taken away just around Halloween. And it's still there. I obviously come with a significant and minor issue than those was discussed today here, but my issue is also one of safety. In years past, Old Blood Road has been a dirt road. Never had an issue with that, but in the last couple of years, the condition have been seriously deteriorated. And this has not been resultant from incremental traffic or weather. I
Excuse me,
think
Stefan, did you present us with that information, or are you just presenting it now?
I am presenting it now.
Okay,
and-
because we can't see it very well, and so it's difficult. If you'll excuse us, that's way too small. And I'm going to have to crank around to look at it. So go ahead, and I just wondered if it was in my backups.
That's all right.
Yep. The conditions have, on the surface itself, have gone incremental rocks, dust, deeper holes, very slippery, muddy conditions. These are recent pictures that I took, not trying to dramatize anything, but a picture tells 1,000 words. I'm going to quickly whisk through these so that you can appreciate the severity of the conditions of the road.
It's better now. When were these taken?
Not long ago. I mean, we just experienced summer, hotter weather, but that was as late as early April.
Okay.
And I wanted to say that the Department of Public Works have been extremely cooperative. They have done just about everything possible. But I think that road itself has reached a point of no return. Pictures were taken actually this morning while I was walking. And one of the issues that you experience, this is at the intersection of Wilson Hill Road with Old Blood Road. Several bikers wipe out there because the dirt migrates into the asphalt side of it. Cars actually lose control because when they apply their brakes, they get into the dirt side. Ruts on the side of the road, deep grooves that causes the road to be narrow. Lots of potholes still on those roads. And every time a machine goes in and scrapes it, it feels like it's digging in its way into China because it's not helping. It actually, every time they scrape it, you bring more and more rocks because the condition of the soils in Merrimack just worsens it. I wanted to say, actually, Finley was over in my house to fix a tub, and he actually says, well, your roads are pretty bad, and one day I decided not to come over here. The mail lady, delivery trucks have said, look, we can't just go in there. I work from my home. I have other neighbors that I know that work from their homes, and delivery of goods and parcels is just not possible because of the road conditions. As you can see on these pictures here, what happens when they scrape it, they push it on the road. This is a development over the years. What they've done, if they build all this, what they scrape onto the sides of the road, creating that mess over there on the side. In conjunction with other neighbors that I have, we understand that this road is contingent to become eventually paved as the last cluster development is purchased. We ask if, some advance in the fundings can be made to get this road paved. Jokingly, even dirt road in Merrimack is paved today. The issue is more safety hazard. We have a couple of kids, including mine, so it's total four, just gotten their driver's license, and driving in these conditions is pretty hairy. That also creates a problem with emergency vehicles needing to come to our road, God forbid. The benefits of paving it is significantly better proposition than having to continuously maintain it over and over again. In a nutshell, thank you. I hope you take this into consideration. Scott has a couple of more pieces of information that he added to the slides that I want to invite him to come over and talk. But basically, it adds to supports what I just presented to you today.
Just for my comment, I think Stefan summed it up pretty well.
Could you introduce yourself first,
I'm
please?
sorry, I'm Scott Messina. I live on 36 Old Blood Road. Stefan summed it up very well. I don't want to bullet point you to death. I just gave him some of my notes.
Sir, I'm getting a signal behind you. Can you speak a little closer?
Sure.
It must be.
So I just had sent Stefan some bullet points when he was putting the material together, just to go over it. I don't want to point you to death on the detail. But to Stefan's point, there are potholes, there are rivulets, poor drainage around the road is just cutting across, and it's just washing out. The grader comes, that fills it back in, and it just happens over and over again. One of the points that I wanted to make, I've had rocks the size of baseballs left behind from the grading, and our vehicles are left to stamp them back down into the ground. Then the grader comes and stirs them up again. Our vehicles are taking a beating. It's a financial cost to maintain, the wear and tear on our vehicles, as well as safety concerns. So I just wanted to bring that up. And of course, driving down the road, you get one groove, your suspension hits it, you create this oscillation of a pattern down the road. I have a pickup truck, I'm going down the road. If I go more than 10 miles an hour, the ass end of that truck is skipping across the road as you turn corners. So there is a safety factor here involved.
I will forward this entire presentation. It's already embedded in this laptop here, but I will forward you in a PDF form, because this is 100 megabytes size. So I'm gonna get down to 5 to you. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say something to, I'm also a resident of.
As long as you come up.
Hi, my name's Kim Field. I live on 33 Old Blood Road. My daughter, she lives with an injury where her collarbone basically isn't attached to her sternum. Sometimes she wakes up in the morning and she can't move, and we need to take her to the chiropractor to get her put back into place. And I have to drive a half a mile down this road over these bumps and rocks and grooves, and I have to watch her groaning in pain over every one. I can't avoid them. It's impossible. And it's hard to watch as a mother. Thank you. This one. It's hard to watch as a mother to see your daughter doing that. Now, obviously, we bought our house about 5 years ago. She didn't have this injury then, or we would have surely considered that when we bought the house. But the road was supposed to be paved in the near future anyways, because of the cluster development that was going to be happening at the end of the road. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. And then also, my children are teenagers and they drive, and these ruts were so bad this winter, at the end of the winter, basically. I lost control of my car a couple times. I was literally pulled almost off the road towards these trees that are very, like, right on the edge of the road. And my kids were, driving down this road several times a day, and that's nerve-wracking as well. If there's anything that could be done to help the road, it would be really appreciated. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I'll be the last.
So thank you, everyone. Appreciate it. My name's Tim Burns. I live at 35 Old Blood Road. And first off, I'd like to say, I think Merrimack's a wonderful town. So this is all constructive. I look at it and I say, we've talked about a light today being a safety concern. I think that was one of your comments. You had said, geez, why don't we do something about it before somebody gets hurt? And this is all about foresight. It's not a matter of if something happens on that road, it's when, unfortunately. Everybody here has articulated situations. I have a 9-year-old and a 7-year-old. They don't get picked up by the bus because the buses won't go down the road. And certainly, I'm not concerned about our very responsible neighbors going down the road. We're used to it, right? We're going around potholes and trying to find spots where it's not going to pull our car off the road. It's the unsuspecting driver that's going to come down that road at the wrong time, during the wrong season, with the wrong pothole, and hit somebody and hurt somebody. Now, I would submit to you that it is a significant capital outlay to pave any road in Merrimack. I get that. You all have a fiduciary responsibility to the citizens of Merrimack. I would submit to you, though, if something like that happens, this is a scene we've seen play out. People are made aware of a situation, nobody does anything about it, and then somebody gets hurt, and all of a sudden the exposure is much greater. So I would say, from a Merrimack standpoint, it makes sense to do something about it. And I think we've all talked about, let's do something creative to solve these problems. Rather than saying we can't do something, let's say, geez, if we look at it from a financial standpoint, instead of putting the onus on a developer to invest dollars before they build houses, if the town were to do it and then the builder reimburses them, I think a developer is more likely to develop, right? They don't have to outlay the dollars up front. And then the town recognizes tax revenues on 70 new homes, which I think is significant. And I'd say that plus, I pay taxes on 2 homes in Merrimack. One is a rental property and one is mine. That's $22,000 a year that we pay in taxes. We're glad to do our part, but this is something that is not a 2019 standard. The planning board, which I remember you being on it, you were part of the Chestnut Hill development, right?
Oh, yeah.
You thought it was responsible enough for the town to say, if we put in new homes, that road needs to be paved, right? That was part of the whole, of pre-construction, which meant you all thought responsibly, this road needs to get paved. So why put the onus on the developer when the town knows it's a problem? Let's do it now and have something happen where the developer reimburses us, the town after. That's what I would submit to you. Any questions?
No, I think we all understand you very well.
Okay.
The problem, like you said, is fiduciary, and at what point and where do we find the money to pay for all of these kinds of projects and things? And part of that is why the planning board is oftentimes excited when a developer does acknowledge that they're willing to pave the road, because
Absolutely.
that's where we can get the funds to do that kind of thing.
Yeah, completely understand that. And I think a developer would be much more likely, I'm not a developer, granted, but I think they would be much more likely to say, I can take a portion of each home sale and give it back to you versus outlay the millions of dollars up front. I think from any investment perspective, that's a much better point of view, right, for a developer.
Oh, I
So-
wouldn't argue with you a bit.
Yeah.
Now you're asking for the town to outlay millions of dollars up front, and that's where it becomes an issue for
Sure.
us. And so we're
Understood.
trying to balance those things and work them out. Keep our tax rate reasonable and yet provide the safety and security and services that
Sure.
the town expects. So,
Appreciate the consideration. Thank you.
thank you. Yes, Peter?
I see the DPW director here. Is he going to chime in on this at all, on any of the information on costs or anything? I didn't know if
You want, Kyle? Can you, can you come help us understand the condition of the road, where it has been 5 years ago, why it might be worse this year than it was in the past? And
Good evening, counselors. Congratulations, Lon and Tom and Bill in your new roles. And for the people behind me who don't know me, I'm Kyle Fox, Public Works Director. And what you just heard is largely true. All of our gravel roads were really bad this year, unquestionable. It was a problem statewide. There was a couple towns that showed up on Channel 9 this year. The big problem we experienced this year is we're in New Hampshire. Everyone is familiar with the phrase mud season. Typically that happens once or twice in a winter. Gravel roads, we prepare them in the fall. The frost comes, they freeze, and they stay frozen, and they're really great all through the winter. And then the spring thaw comes.
hits.
And the period where the top of the gravels start to thaw until the rest of the frost comes out of the ground is the period where mud season happens. And the reason it happens is the water that's now thawed on top can't migrate down in. It's stuck, and it creates mud. This winter, it was a really crummy winter for us. There wasn't a lot of snow amount, but every snowfall was followed by freezing rain and then warming temperatures, and it created havoc with all of our gravel roads. And I've used the phrase, we had a bunch of mini mud seasons all winter long, and that's really what happened. The folks behind me, they explained to you about the ruts, and so the problem for us is our equipment that takes care of these roads. It's big, it's heavy, the grader, and the ruts we leave with that equipment dwarfs anything that the cars leave. And a lot of times, by us getting on it with the bigger equipment, we do more damage to the roads than there would be if we did nothing. And we're caught in that tough predicament. And it's not that we don't care.
No.
We certainly do.
Oh, I know.
It is a tough situation. I've expressed my long-term desire to have no gravel roads in Merrimack, and I can't wait for the day that we can say that. But it is expensive, and it's a tough proposition.
And
Speaking directly to Old Blood Road, I had done an estimate up based on the Chestnut Hill plans just for the Old Blood Road portion of it, and the estimate I came up with is $377,000 to upgrade it to town standard. That includes cutting back the trees, which you heard about, that are encroaching in the roadway, putting in drainage, rebuilding the road base because the road base is not suitable to pave, and then eventually paving it.
So do we end up putting in closed drainage systems or something every time we do something like that, or can?
Not every time, and in fact, this road would not have closed drainage systems. It would, what was on the approved plans was for open channel flow, but there are some cross culverts to help get the water from one side of the road to the other where it naturally wants to go.
Right. And to rehabilitate this road, $375,000 would include what? Removing 12 inches of it and repacking it and stuff like that? Or?
Yeah, it would be excavating out the poor material, widening it because it is narrow, putting in new gravels, crushed gravels, and then paving. And I will say one of the reasons that it was better 5 or 6 years ago, when the Chestnut Hill, or the previous subdivision to the Chestnut Hill, which was some of you may remember the 3-lot Prince subdivision.
Yeah.
As part of that subdivision, the planning board required, as a request of the fire department, to upgrade the road to a certain standard, and that was to get it wider than it was. It was even narrower then than it is today, to get it widened to the point where there was 16 feet of drivable width so that they could get their engines up. You may recall back in 2008-ish, there was a fire up there that the fire apparatus couldn't get up.
Yep, that's right.
And so that was the emphasis. So the contractor of the Prince subdivision actually did do some road upgrades at that time.
And we're just looking at a bad situation this year with all these mini mud
Right.
seasons.
And of course, from our perspective, with the Chestnut Hill subdivision out there, our assumption was it would be completed by now, and that was our hope and expectation as well. Unfortunately for everyone in this room, it hasn't happened yet.
Okay. Any other questions for Kyle at this point? Bill?
Just a question for Eileen, if possible. Do we have to bond this project, or can we access the capital reserve funds or from our fund balance to pay for this if we wanted to?
I haven't really, I can't really, it's nothing I've really considered. So all I can think of at this point is that we have $1 million to do roads. If you want to take $375,000 out of that and do it, then that's fine. I'm not sure about the capital reserve funds and how that would all take place, or if we even have that kind of money in there to do a project that just all of a sudden gets on the radar.
That's bad now, and, right.
You've already, for Kyle, with the money that's been allocated, have you already made plans for that for paving?
Yes, we've already gone
Oh,
out to bid.
absolutely.
and
Okay,
the
so
bid
you've
has
already,
been awarded.
so that's not even an option?
Right. Okay, so it's something we'll continue to look into and try to understand, I think.
I
Yes,
will
sir.
just say one very brief thing. As a result of the emails back and forth about Old Blood, I wanted to contact the developer and find out what's going on, why is the project stalled, and that kind of thing. And it really had nothing to do with the road and the cost of the road. It had to do with another matter. And so I'll be continuing to talk to him, is all I can tell you about that. So they're interested in proceeding, but there are issues. So that I can't really divulge at this point.
Peter?
I guess one of my concerns as far as us building the road and then asking the developer to reimburse us is, what's the likelihood if we rebuilt that road, what's the likelihood of him actually doing it? If he breaks ground 2 years from now and says, hey, great, the road's all done. I don't feel the need that I have to do this unless we get something in writing right now. Am I correct with that, or am I missing something?
I think you're right.
There's all kinds of things that really need to be discussed about this, and I hate to sound cryptic, but there are talks in the works.
Yeah, I think, I don't want to leave the folks that showed up tonight or listening that were affected by this, that this is going to, still continue with this.
I think it's important to point out that all of our gravel and dirt roads are on the radar. They're things that Kyle has indicated in the past, and I'm sure will continue to indicate for us, that they're a problem for Merrimack to continue to maintain. And it becomes a cost-benefit factor. I hate to sound like the DOT, but, and noise barriers, but it also becomes something that we have to figure out how do we service the entire town, and taking a third of our paving budget to do a short piece of road for a few homes is probably not a good payback for where we're at. We need to find another way to approach this to handle it. I'm hoping this is an isolated year. I know that road's been there for many, many, many years, and I haven't heard this kind of complaint about it in the past. I know it's always been a problem during mud season, as any dirt road will be in Merrimack. And we'll certainly keep looking at it and trying to come up with solutions that are viable for the entire community. And I feel your pain, I understand it. If you're challenging me on a safety issue and tell me that I have to close the road rather than have somebody have told me it's a problem and then be liable for it, then we might have to do that. But I don't think you want to go there either. So let's try to work together to make this as good a solution as we can for the entire community. And we certainly hear you and understand what you're talking about and know and understand the situation. Okay? Thank you.
Don't go anywhere, Kyle, you might.
You might, yeah, don't go away. Our next topic is...
Speaking of another road that's in...
Yeah, our next topic is other individual wanting to talk about Longa Road.
I just want to appreciate, I thank the people who have come before us, and they're really giving credit to DPW for trying. And I'd like to thank them for that and acknowledge that, the DPW has
Highway
done
Department
what
is doing the best they can.
the best they can. And yes, the circumstances have been horrendous. So it's not for lack of trying.
Okay, Peter?
Good evening, everybody. Oh, sorry, can you hear me? Thank
Yep.
you.
Yes, thank
Peter
you.
Bover, 16 Longa Road. I guess some of my thunder was taken from Old Blood Road. I think I'm the only representative from Longa here tonight.
It's a good tutorial.
Well, to start, a couple things started going through my head as I was listening to the discussion. One is, Tom, do you live on a dirt road or a gravel road?
No, I do not.
Then I would appreciate that. Then do you feel the pain? Because you mentioned that.
I drive on dirt roads periodically.
So then can we clarify what a dirt road and a gravel road is? Is there a difference?
Generally speaking, I wouldn't put it that way, no.
So I would take a gravel road, because that's not gravel,
Okay.
right? And I know you're having a hard time seeing. Safety is an issue. All these things have been said, so I don't want to belabor the point. Vehicles are getting stuck on our road. It's the mud season. I understand that this year was bad. I've waited. I've been at this house now for about going on 3 years. It's the same every year, not just the thaw and the mud season. It's after a heavy rain. Clearly, there's a drainage issue. It's not just, we say, I want this road paved. I want this road improved. If paving is the end state at some point when we can get to that, that'd be great. But this road needs improvement. What I don't understand in the area that I live, and for long, if you don't know, the Shore Road, Carter, Mayhew, Carter's paved, longest paved at the bottom half, but not the top half. Again, more damage that you can see. There actually is a traffic cone.
That's on Mayhew, isn't it?
Nope, this is all Longa.
It's all Longa.
There's in
'Cause I
the
was on
upper
Longa
right, on the
yesterday.
far left picture, as you're looking at it, they put a traffic cone. I guess hey, stay clear of this area.
Does Mayhew have traffic cones on?
I don't
Because
drive down it,
I
so-
did that whole area
Mhm.
yesterday, that's why I'm asking.
As you can see, I have to pull, if there's another vehicle coming down the road, I have to pull off to the right just so a vehicle can pass. The issue here too is if you go to the opposite side, you'll be down in a ditch. Where, again, you call it a safety issue. Do I think it's gonna happen? Probably not. Could it happen? Absolutely. With, a new house being built soon, neighbors having kids that are going to be of age of driving, I see it happening at some point. I took this picture because one day I noticed that a bunch of crushed stone was put down. Again, Mr. Fox and his team, they do a fantastic job, but I'm not sure what the benefit of this was. I don't know if it was them or a neighbor or someone trying to solve something, but it just seemed to miss the mark. They put this down, and within 2 days, it was washed away. But then I found this presentation from 2018, 2017. These are all the roads that have been paved. If Old Blood Road, and I support that road being paved as well, I think if you took some of the funds that it took to pave these roads that I would argue probably weren't near the disarray that Old Blood and Longa is, I think you could find the money. And I look at the pictures on the right where I'd take Alligator Crack Road all day long. It continues from 2014 to 2018. A lot of roads have been improved, but not Longa. And it seems that one of the major concerns here was the price. I don't find that to be a reasonable answer in 2019 to just keep kicking the can down the road. At some point, it's going to be someone's problem, and if we just keep ignoring it, nothing's ever going to happen. I don't expect things to happen overnight, but I want the discussion to happen where we do have a running capital reserve fund that is matured every year. So every year, it's a rolling budget. It doesn't go away at the end of the year. It keeps growing as long as we don't use it, correct?
It would keep going as long as we don't use it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But we use it.
Sure.
We have specific ideas of what is being paid for out of those.
Yes, absolutely.
It's called the capital improvement plan.
Understood. This is part of the capital improvement plan. So when I'm looking at, 2014, 15, 16, all these roads have been improved. I can't imagine that all these roads have been in as disarray as Old Blood and Longa. As I continue through this presentation here, I look at some of these projects that are on the radar. The reason why I incorporated this, that someone at Merrimack designed, is Longa's not on here, but a sidewalk is, and the Woodbury Street sidewalk. Some of these projects, in my personal opinion, don't seem to hit the mark of the condition of Longa Road. We're looking at the Depot Street boat ramp. I mean, these are things that are going to cost money that I would argue might be able to be put, kick the can down the road like Longa's been for the past few years. I mean, Wasserman Park Beach. I'm not saying that these projects aren't important or don't need to be done, but somewhere along the line we need to prioritize what we need to prioritize what really is a safety concern versus a luxury. Everyone needs to drive. It's costing our vehicles, dollars. We're all paying taxes where we all need to drive on our road. We all don't go to the beach. Tennis courts. Again, I don't mean to throw this in the face of anybody to say, this, project is, but this project has been identified. There's been pictures taken. The Longa, again, wasn't on this. It keeps going. Again, Green Pond Road, Leicester Road, Longa was not identified. Keeps
There has
going.
been a lot of discussion with you about your neighborhood, if I may be so bold. That Longa Road cannot be done by itself, or we're just throwing that money away because that will just wash out or will become a problem or something like that. If we don't do the drainage, if we don't do the design for the entire neighborhood there to deal with the runoff down to the lake and things of that nature, we'll have DES, we'll have everybody on our backs.
Where's the water run now? Because when I drive through, there is a catch basin down there.
Okay, but
Okay.
if we merely pave those roads, the water's gonna run down those roads.
I'm
and
not
then-
asking for the roads just to be merely paved. I'm asking for them to be improved. I'm asking for this town council to identify and figure out a way, instead of kicking it down the road. Because at some point, it's just not going to be your problem. It's going to be the next person's problem, the next person's problem, and the next person's. I like my house. I think it's an unfair advantage where if the road was fine for 1 year and it's going to continue to happen, it's only going to get worse. There's clearly a drainage issue. And it wouldn't be as bad because when the bottom half of Longa and Shore Road and Carter are all paved. Something had to happen to say, we can pave this area but not this area. I don't agree with the fact that the cost is too high for it not to be looked at seriously.
Oh, I think we're looking at it seriously. I do appreciate that. Bill, did you have a question
Well,
or a comment?
a couple of things. The situation I've been down there more times than I like to admit. Kyle knows because I've been down there several years ago to look at some of the issues going on down there. The only way that I would consider, well, let me rephrase that. The way that I would consider fixing the problem is there would have to be a commitment from the neighborhoods to have certain roads be one way coming in and one way going out. Because most of the roads in Merrimack generally are 33 feet wide. In some of the more narrow locations, they vary between 14 to 21. And Kyle, I hate to come up here, but correct me if I'm wrong, it's desirable that 16 feet is
Per lane or?
just 16 feet for a road with gravel shoulders.
Our standard road is 24 feet.
24 feet,
paved.
okay.
Yeah. The minimum width that the fire department requires is 16
That's
feet
what I'm
of
getting at.
surface.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate the clarification. Thank
Sure.
you.
That's a one-way road at that point.
Correct, which is why I'm saying that if we're to be serious about improving the roads at Pine Knoll Shores, then there has to be a commitment from the neighbors to understand that the way that they used to get in and go out is going to have to change in order for us to invest money into that particular neighborhood. Has to change. It's the only way it's going to work, because Kyle just illustrated the point.
Eileen?
The only point that I want to make is if you indicate to the neighborhood that they need to make a commitment to have one-way roads, I don't want anybody to think this is not still going to be in the multiple millions of dollars to do this project,
No, I
regardless of the width. So Kyle is here and has some information for you if you would like to hear him, or
I've spoke with them and in detail, and I understand it's a high price. But again, it refers to kicking the can down the road. We're going to just continue to have these big machines come in, improve our road for a matter of 5, 6, 7 days until the big wash, until the big rain comes. We're gonna have big boulders that we're gonna have to contend with. I mean, I just don't understand that thought process of it's gonna be millions and millions of dollars, where my tax dollars go to pave all those other roads that I would argue probably aren't as in bad a shape as ours. I'm still paying, and I hate to say that. When someone says I'm a taxpayer, they're about to, kind of be a jerk. But I am a taxpayer. And my taxes aren't going to improve the things that I want to use on a daily basis, which is my road. So what I'm saying is, if there is a way, you use that capital reserve fund, if you could portion out a piece of it every year until, all right, we're gonna, make a serious, dent in what it's going to cost to, let's start this project in phases. We're gonna fix the drainage issue. We're gonna actually be able to put gravel down. It's not a gravel road, it's a mud dirt road. There's no gravel to be had on it.
I still think that Kyle should be able to speak to you about this, because what is the fact of the matter is it cannot be done in pieces. It has to be done as one, and I wrote you a lengthy email about it. And the cost is in the neighborhood of $6 million. So I'm not really sure how much money could be expected to put in a capital reserve fund for how long to acquire $6 million. Just the other thing, also, you said something to Tom about, do you live on a dirt road? Do you feel my pain? Well,
No, he had mentioned, he said, I feel your pain.
he does
Or-
feel, he feels your pain.
If you don't
but he-
drive it every
but he-
day, you
But he
don't.
also didn't buy his home on a
That's,
dirt road.
I reject that statement.
Okay, reject
I
it.
apologize to say that, and I think that's, I think that's a little bit rude to say, to be quite frank with you. When I bought my house, the road was in great condition. So, I mean, for you to say, I just think that is extremely off-colored and rude. But the road was in great condition when I bought the house, so am I supposed to drive down it every season until I realize that it's not in great shape? Is that what you're asking Merrimack residents to do when they want to move here? So,
I've given you as much information that I'm able to give to you.
Okay.
I don't
I
know what
appreciate that.
else to tell you.
Peter?
I'm not here to get a decision tonight. I'm here to put it into the ears and minds of the town council to consider it and figure out a way. Because again, I understand the price tag is high. But I reject the fact to say that it costs too much, so we're not going to do it. I don't accept that answer. I think there always is a way to figure out something. Again, I would take part of a solution instead of just having it just graded every other week. Thank you. I'm done. I appreciate
Peter.
your time.
Well, first of all, I do want to hear from Kyle, because I think it's important, because I think there's folks that are listening at home or watching that haven't heard all these facts and figures. Second of all, Peter, I think you've made a great point. You brought this to the forefront. I don't have a problem with that at all. Knowing every member of this council, and since you emailed myself, and I know the rest of, this has been on our minds and discussed, much like Blood Road, along with a lot of other issues that happen in this town. So, our purpose is not to, as you say, kick the can down the road. it's, yeah, we want to try and find something feasible, financially feasible as well. Because I think that anytime any citizen in this town, such as yourself, comes forward with issues, I mean, I certainly don't want to blow that off. I look at the conditions of these roads, that concerns me, But again, this is a complicated problem, and I think you recognize that.
I do.
And so, again, I think that we're going to continue to move forward on these. I'm hoping to see some answers for these roads, and Kyle's made some, I think we have to address that we have some gravel roads that need to work and move forward. I don't know how quickly we can do it, but I think you're right. I think maybe if it's, in an email you and I discussed, I said maybe it's the beginning of a capital reserve fund that takes place in a few years, however, but we start the project somewhere, start to plan. And this town has been good about that. It's been my experience as a counselor that the town's been very good about, let's look at these projects and address them. So I just kind of wanted to say that, but I would like to hear from Kyle.
Okay, can I?
Nancy?
I just want to
Before you
say
start,
something.
Kyle.
I did a little exploring. I went to Old Blood Road because I wanted to be able to know. And I went down Longa. And Mayu was much worse than Longa. I'm not diminishing Longa was bad, but I went down Longa, and it's where it meets Old Babusick. That's where the big ruts in the water was, right? The worst part. And then, of course, I had to pull over into someone's driveway because they were coming up north, and my thought was, this should be a one-way. So, okay, so the beginning of it was the worst. Then I went to Mayu, and they've got cones on the side where the drainage is going down. And then the other one is Merriam and Thomas. And Thomas at the top has an apron that comes from Old Babusick Lake Road down to it. And then it gets to dirt, and I'm going, that's what could be done to Longa, because the big ruts on Longa was at the top. And if you were able to grade that and just do the apron to coming down, that would help. So I think I would like to be able to communicate to you. I think some things can be done. But you have to accept the fact that if in fact that area, which needs to be done, because the Shoreline Protection Act tells us what we have to do. We have to do a very specific, just the cost of doing the planning is going to be amazing. It'll be $6 million. That means a bond that's going to have to go before the town for a vote, okay? And I'm just trying to be realistic for you. If I had $6 million, who knows? I'd probably buy some land down there. But the point is that I do agree that some things can be done. Kyle's can talk to us about, first of all, we recognize it's an issue. Two, you need to understand that there's a limitation that we're under. And somewhere between those two extremes, maybe some things Kyle might be able to help with. Okay? So it's not that you're not being heard. It's just we're within those limitations. Kyle?
Thank you, Nancy. So, so the lake roads, they have been on the radar for a long time. You guys all know that we maintain a master drainage list, which it's a list we keep internally of all the drainage projects that residents call about and that we see ourselves and what needs to be done. And we have criteria that we rank them all. The number one project on our drainage master list since 2009 when we started it is the Babusick Lake roads. And why is it number one? Well, because it's next to the lake. It is one of the biggest features of the town. We are an MS4 community, for those who don't know what that means. It stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. We have an EPA permit that we're required to get permission from the EPA for any stormwater discharges. We can't just create a new discharge and put it into the lake. So we need to put the water somewhere. That is going to be a huge cost. And one of the biggest costs of the Lake Road project will be right-of-way acquisition, because we don't own enough land down there to treat the stormwater before it goes into the lake. So that's really the biggest obstacle, is the environmental side of doing a project down there, is how do we take care of the stormwater. And for that, at this point, is an insurmountable project. Eileen did ask me to look at and get a proposal from a consultant to do a study. Often the way a project starts is, because it is $6 million, it's big, it's insurmountable, right? Well, let's start small. Let's figure out what needs to be done and what is it really going to cost. It's going to be in the millions. Is it 6? Is it 5? We don't know. So I do have a proposal to do a preliminary engineering study on the site. Hopefully I can bring that to the council at a meeting soon to discuss that, whether we could go forward. The proposal was for about $66,000. It would include surveying the right-of-ways, doing some road profiles, looking at the septic histories to kind of figure out what kind of soils are underneath there that we're going to be dealing with, and all the other facets of engineering a project, and where do we put the stormwater? How much stormwater is there, and where can we put it? So that's a discussion Eileen and I have talked about bringing to the town council soon, and we'd like to do that. And that'll really be the first step to kicking it off. And then we can talk about, the long-term funding process. Is it a bond? Do we budget for it? Do we establish another capital reserve fund? Those are all great questions that we can figure out together.
Okay.
What
Yeah.
about the suggestions that the apron, the one-way,
So-
is that realistic,
Funny you
not
mentioned the
realistic?
one-way. So when I was talking to our consultant, him and I did a drive through all the roads in April as he was preparing his proposal. And I suggested to him, for two reasons. I like the concept of one-way roads down there for two reasons. One, our standard right-of-way width on any new roads, and most of our roads, is 50 feet wide. We only have 2 rods down there, which is 33 feet on those roads. So it's narrow right-of-way. So a one-way road makes sense there. From another standpoint, it gives us less impervious area, which means less stormwater to treat.
Yep.
And thirdly, as Peter will tell you, Carter Road, Longer Road, they're awful for sight distance when you get back out to Babusick Lake Road.
Oh, terrible.
Merriam Road
Wicked.
is really pretty good. So I would envision Merriam Road being a road out, Longer Road probably being a road in, Rennie Road being kind of a connector road in through, and working the network that way. So we are thinking of these things. How to get there, it's a tough one. It is.
Ron?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, like Nancy, I just mentioned to Nancy, she should have picked me up. I was over in Old Blood Road, and I was up here in May and Longa and Carter and whatever. The first thing that struck me, and I've been there not as often as Bill Boyd in the recent months, but I spent some time up there in another life, and I was struck yesterday by the conflict between antiquity and modernity in terms of what's happened up there. And if you've been there a little while, you know what I'm talking about. Along with that conflict comes, as Kyle mentioned, and I really am glad that you did, the MS4 regulations and the complications that brings to a system or to an area such as Pine Knoll. You can't just do a piece at a time anymore. And you can't make water run uphill without a pump. And, good luck with us. And I don't mean that cavalierly. It's a very complicated area up there. But I'll tell you one thing I appreciate. You're a young guy, you're here, and you're keeping it up front. Keep it up. I started that way 40-some years ago. Thank you.
Are there any other comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, could Kyle make a presentation to us on May 9th?
We will certainly agenda it. I'm not sure I'm prepared to say May 9th, but Are you ready to do something that soon, or?
Sure. Whatever.
He
whatever
he
works
has
for
some
you
things
guys.
tonight. I don't know,
Is that something that could be decided tonight?
no, it can't
Oh,
be
okay.
decided
Yeah.
tonight, but I didn't know if you wanted to show any PowerPoint, if any of you wanted to see
Well,
any. of the
Peter's asked
things.
for it. I thought that's what you were doing when you came up, so if
He
you
did
have
do
a
a
presentation.
You did do
I
PowerPoint.
don't have a PowerPoint. I
Oh.
have all the information that I sent to each of you, I have as PDFs on the computer.
Right, okay.
It was in our packet, so.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
I would, I'd say plan on the agenda.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've
so-
read this, I'm comfortable with what Kyle has presented to us, but because it hasn't been agended is why I'm saying, can we do it for May 9th? Because while it's still fresh in our mind, we've got the information here, it really should not be a difficult conversation to have amongst us.
I have no problem with putting it on a near-term future agenda. I would like to be able to look at what our situation is, though, before I commit to anything specific. So we'll make every effort to put it on May 9th.
Okay. Fair enough.
I'm trying to be a little slippery here. I appreciate that people recognize that, but I just,
You don't know what's already on
I just
there.
need to know where we're going and what's happening. Otherwise, people always get upset when we're here till 11 o'clock or 12. And I don't want to get stuck in that situation. So we'll certainly be addressing this, excuse me, in a very near agenda, to see where we can go with at least that early stage part of the project. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, folks. I appreciate you putting up with us and going through this. Next on our agenda is a town council retreat goal session submitted by Chairman Rothaus and myself. Every year, as we pointed out earlier in our evening here, the town council meets in a kind of an 8-hour retreat somewhere in the local vicinity. We've been out as far as Bedford, I think, and trying to find meeting locations. But what we're looking for today is ideas for what should be on the agenda and more specifically a timing issue so that we can try to get everybody there. We typically do this on a Friday all day, and so people like myself take a day off from work. Folks of you that are retired don't need to do that portion, but you
Alcohol
have
and
other
sick.
issues like not going to Rhode Island or something like that. So if anybody has any thoughts or specific dates that absolutely won't work, we typically tend to do this in very late May or June. The problem with May is that if we ask for too many different topics to be covered, then we're putting
Don't
a
have
big
time
burden
to
on the
get
staff
ready.
to get all that information together. And that's why they also want to know what kinds of information you want to cover so they can pull that. They typically do a bang-up job of getting a lot of good background information for us.
Do we know when the town council meetings are in June?
Yes, we do.
By definition, they're the second and
13th and 27th?
Yeah. 7th, 14th and 28th, 13th.
Town-
June of 13 and
13th and
27, yeah.
Now, is June not one of the months that we have one meeting? Was
No,
that
July,
July,
August
August.
usually, because
Okay,
school's still
so-
in session through most of June, and we typically
So
tend
we
to-
should think about, do we want that retreat on the same week or not the same week as a town council meeting? That would be,
preferably not on the same week, which would make 7th be
which
an
would be
ideal
7th
kind
or
of a date.
21st?
21st is starting to get a little far out. I would,
I'm happy with the 7th.
7th works for me.
I'll be away.
She's not allowed, is she?
no. Weren't you away once already this year?
Well, talk about.
Oh, throw them right under the bus.
Yeah, really.
Okay, June 7th. I mean, for a long period around the 7th, or can we move it a day or two, or?
We could
7th
do
is
it on
out.
a Thursday,
How
couldn't
about
we?
May 31st? Or is that too short?
That's cutting it close, isn't it? Oh, you're not gonna be here. Paul's not gonna be around.
I like May 31st then.
You like it?
I knew there was a reason, because I think I brought that up too, with thinking about it.
it's a little quick for us to get everything.
Yeah.
I'll get it together. in
We
the
can also
budgets.
go for, potentially for Monday, as far as I'm concerned. Monday and a Friday is basically the
That
same
would be
kind of
okay
day.
for me, too.
June 3rd?
Are you around then? No.
That whole week.
When are you around?
After the night.
Memorial Day.
After the
So
night?
either the 17th or the 21st of June. Because we meet on the 13th of June.
Would it be too much to do it on a Friday after the meeting?
The 14th,
Mm.
Flag Day?
Flag Day.
I don't know, is there a reason not to do it?
I wouldn't mind it.
Do you have
As
a
long
particular
as the
problem with
chair and
that, or-
vice chair make the agenda items on the 13th not heavy.
That's right. So we're not too brain dead.
I thought this was gonna be a not heavy meeting, so.
Well, we're gonna count it as not heavy.
I could have told you.
Yeah, I knew that.
No, I know.
I'm okay. How does what do you guys think? The 14th?
June 14th?
Yeah.
June 14th work?
Okay.
June 14th work, Lon?
What?
Is the 14th out, Lon? Don't be shaking your head. Either say yes or no.
June 14th's fine.
I'll move my hair appointment.
Okay.
But my pedicure,
She's gonna text Finley.
Finley doesn't get a vote in this issue.
Tell Finley we're gonna volunteer him for four assignments.
For what?
We should.
We're gonna put him in for 4 assignments.
The 14th or
Okay.
the 17th, either one.
So let's plan for the 14th, if we'll use the 17th as a backup.
It's a
Friday and
Friday.
Monday.
Friday the 14th.
And if we, so, I mean, if you can look around for a meeting space and things of that nature.
What about, I know we talked about it, and I know that they've done a lot of work to it. What about the hall at Wasserman Park? Is that, I mean, it seems to, we've done a lot of work to it, cleaning it up. We use it and rent it out for functions.
All right, well,
You can, but it's a very large space.
We're gonna have to have a Kate bracketed in. We did talk about this last year.
Yeah, we did.
yeah, we did.
You got a rule last year, you're gonna get overruled this year too.
We'll
I
let,
think it
we'll
was
let
the
Becky
cost.
decide.
We'll take
Becky
it under
will
advisement
decide.
and
I think it was the cost
work
of
with
that
you
stuff.
guys to try and come up with something that's
And
that's
we had,
viable.
and that had a lot, and Becky and those guys had to do a lot more stuff than what they do otherwise.
Oh, no, and I know they work hard to get that, make it
No, I'm-
successful. I just,
So I'm just saying that it would make a difference in what they would have to do.
Okay.
You can smile, Pete.
well, you know, I always like to make sure everyone understands what the retreat is, because, you know, it's not a spa, we're
It is
not
not.
golfing, and, you know.
No, it's it's a long day, going through all the different things. Anyway, is that sufficient for that? Do you have enough to go forward?
Yeah, just need the topics.
So, okay, so here's, we always ask for people to put forward their topics or their recommendations or suggestions, and I know personally, because I'm as guilty as anybody, that if you give me 2 weeks on that 14th day, I'm gonna be scribbling something down on a piece of paper. So I can't hold your hand to the fire any more than my own, but can we try to get something in the next week or so?
Might I
And if we're not getting
recommend-
things, we're gonna beat on you.
Might
I
I
have a
recommend,
list of topics right in front of me.
Then,
Yep.
okay. Can you type those up and send them in
Who am I sending them to?
might
to
I also recommend,
Bill and myself and Eileen and Paul?
Sure.
No, we get tomorrow.
I guess
Yes.
I'm not,
You may.
if we have a copy of the agenda from last year sent to us, that's a nice framework to start from. Because we can automatically cross off some of them are still active because they're ongoing, and then you can add on what you want to.
And maybe for
Okay.
those items that were carried over from last year, we can get an update.
Exactly. So, and Becky can do that. She did that last year.
Yes, ma'am. I agree. Eileen?
Finley said the 17th would be better. He may be overruled.
Better?
That's what he said.
Tell him
I
he's not
asked-
chair anymore.
What did he say?
I asked him
I
if
gotta
he
go
could do
home.
the
I've got to be a wise
14th,
guy.
and he said the 17th would be better.
A Monday?
I'm okay with either one.
I am too.
Either day works fine for me.
I'm not going anywhere.
Do you want to do the 17th? Yes?
So we just
Okay.
have to do accessibility.
So, is that okay? 17th with 14th as a backup? In case we can't somehow facilitate the thing.
Yeah.
Back to the 17th?
17th, yeah. Since somebody expressed a preference one way or the other. So, where our next meeting is the 9th, is that right?
Yes.
We need to have a finalized agenda by then. So I'm going to ask you to send in whatever information you have to, at least to Eileen and Becky, if you, I would prefer if you send it to Bill and I. And if Becky or somebody can send out a copy of the agenda from last year. Is that okay? To, in the next day or so, so that we can work at that. And we will have our agenda finalized by our next meeting.
God bless
Okay.
you.
And that is going to happen. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Aye.
I appreciate it. Next on the agenda is our town council committee assignments. I don't even know, that's. So, this is always like pulling teeth as well, so, we'll just go down the list. And people can claim them or we'll arm twist
or be
for them or something
silent.
like that. Adult Community Center representative?
I'll do that again.
Okay. Is that all right? Anybody else have a desire to do that? Great. Ag Commission? Is that new or it's highlighted differently?
It is, it's new for an assignment for the council. It's always been in the Ag Commission policy to have an ad hoc member of the town council be part of it. We were reviewing the commission stuff, Becky
And we need one.
yes. Finley,
Okay,
Finley.
that's a good Finley one, huh? Anybody else have an interest in that one? Do not text him.
I did not.
Authorized sewer representative. Is that a good Finley one?
No, I think the cemetery trustee would be good for him.
Well, that's a good one too. Eileen, unless you have a great desire to hang on to these.
I think I've already been designated.
You
You're
are.
the queen of the dead. I'm just wondering if maybe the town needs a king of the dead.
I can't be king and queen.
No, so I was thinking maybe Finley could take it over since he's not here to object.
You're being mean.
Told him it was payback.
I know.
Okay. So Eileen, are you comfortable with keeping these positions? Sewer rep, cemetery trustee, and chamber of commerce?
Sure.
Okay. Conservation Commission?
I'm currently on there and would like to stay.
Anybody else have a burning desire? That's great. Heritage Commission,
I'd like that one.
okay.
Yep.
I'm a member.
You're a member of the Heritage Commission?
Oh, well.
That's good.
Welcome, if you want.
No reason why you can't, I suppose.
Well, I don't know if we can have two town council members sitting on it.
So I defer.
Okay. So we'll put Lon in there, and then that's going to open a position for somebody to join it.
Correct.
I think that's the right way to do that.
Do you want that one?
Lon's
He's
doing
already
it.
on the
He's
commission.
on it, so he's gonna stay on it.
saying is if Barbara wants it, do you,
I don't care.
Do you want something else?
you don't care, but she wants it, so.
Well, but does he have to resign from the Heritage Commission?
Yes, he would.
So why go through all that machinations to do that?
So if you want to
guys-
keep being on the committee,
Wendy has.
The last time that I served on the council, you guys put me on the Heritage Commission.
And so you joined?
You've been there ever since.
Okay. Highway safety, I know Finley would
Finley
like
likes
that.
that.
Stay there.
Yeah, it meets once a year.
Well.
Something
Merrimack
always going.
Safeguard.
He's pretty smart.
Barbara, that's the one you said you were on? Is that
Yeah,
right?
it hasn't done anything all year. I would like cross that one off, unless
So
they
you-
insist on having
So you're suggesting
someone.
we don't need representation?
What,
No.
what does Merrimack Safe, is that a committee that meets?
Well, I never,
Or that theoretically meets?
yeah. That's a good way to put it.
It's going away with a grant, so why don't we leave it blank?
Yep.
Okay. Is that reasonable? National Regional Planning Commission?
I'm enjoying myself. I'd like to keep it.
Okay, great. New Hampshire Rail Transit Authority?
Are we, is that a moot point at this point from what I'm hearing and reading in the news?
Oh, the Rail Transit Authority?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
So maybe we should just check that off, take that off.
Just leave
our
that
list.
blank.
I would leave it blank.
Leave it blank for now. Planning Board voting member.
Parks and Rec.
Oh, Parks and Rec, excuse me.
I'm currently on there, but, and I want to make this clear, the folks on there are great people, motivated, fun to work with, but I think I'm going to step away. I know that I'd like to focus a lot of my time and help out on Conservation Committee and as well as the Town Council, so I think I'm going to step away from that one, and only because some time constrictions for me.
Okay. Does anybody else have an interest in Parks and Rec Committee?
Well, then I'll stay if no one, if
Well,
there's nobody, I'll stay.
Finley's not here to deny an interest.
But I think he's,
would really dig it.
What's that?
Finley would love.
well, you know what, keep me on the list then, I'll stay and I'll make it work, but I didn't know.
Well,
if
what do
we
you
could-
want, Lauren? Barbara, do you have, what's your pleasure?
Barbara, are you on Heritage Commission? Yes.
Yes, she wants Heritage Commission.
You're on Heritage?
No.
She would like to be.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're on Heritage.
Okay.
Oh,
So
you
do
are
you-
on Heritage, okay.
Okay, so we're gonna give, so are you gonna do
I'll
Parks
do
and Rec?
Parks and Rec if you want.
Ah, there you go.
There we go.
Well, that works out.
Is that okay?
No,
Sure.
It makes everybody happy.
You go with that, Peter?
I am, thank you, Lon, and again, you know, and I
It's
can
not for lack
update
of
you on some
interest,
things,
it's
but
for
No.
great group
lack
of
of time.
folks, motivated, the Parks and Rec director is awesome.
That's great.
Very good, thank you. So that does bring us to Planning Board voting member. Does anybody have an
Now, that's-
interest in taking that up?
That's been you and Billy's.
It has. I'm certifiable, thank you very much.
Bill, would you consider doing it? Someone has to really know what they're doing.
Yep. That one.
And maybe you could do it second.
I'm sorry. What was that?
She was
And
talking to me,
Tom-
that maybe I
Tom
could
could
be
be
the
the
non-voting
alternate.
member. The alternate member, excuse me. Are you interested in it?
Every Monday night?
No. It's 2 Tuesdays,
2 Tuesdays.
first and third Tuesday of the month.
I'll take it.
Okay?
I'll have to
And I'll-
talk to my wife about it.
Well, I'll go in as the alternate, and maybe we can split it up or do something.
We'll make it work.
Do we have a technology committee rep at this point? You? Are you willing to continue with that?
Have you even met?
Yeah,
Have you? Good.
and we were working on the cable contract.
Oh, that's right. That's
And
right.
what comes after it.
And the town center committee? That's Finley, right now?
So how many committees have we put Finley on?
3.
All right.
Actually,
Just three, I mean, just ones he wanted. Well, the Ag Commission,
the Ag Commission is the only one, and it's not required.
What does he have?
he had Heritage, Highway, and Town Center, and we've moved Heritage to Barb Healy and added him on the Ag Commission.
Right, so he's only got 2, right?
Well, he's got 3.
He's got the
Ag
town
Commission,
center.
the Town Center, and the Highway Safety.
Highway
Which,
safety
yeah, it's not
meets-
like we're asking him to do.
Highway safety is once a year.
Unless we have issues, right? They meet.
Only
if
when they
anybody
have
brings up
issues,
questions.
that's right.
Okay.
Bill?
Any other committees or assignments we need to consider that anybody's aware of?
Sounds good.
Good.
Tighten up for next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Excellent.
Where are we? Committee assignments, which brings us to
Relatively
the town
painless.
manager's annual evaluation. And all we wanted really to do at this point was to make a comment that we did accomplish the annual town manager evaluation amongst the town council. We all, including Eileen, filled out an evaluation form. We hashed out the comments and thoughts on those and had an opportunity to meet with her and discuss it. It was Finley. But the overall approval rating was excellent. The town council is very happy with the job that you're doing, well above satisfactory, and go well beyond the general expectations of a town manager, and we very much appreciate that. Having done that, we've ratified or verified amongst ourselves that you should receive the same pay raise that is being offered to all of the non-union members of the staff, realizing that when you make those recommendations, you never make them for yourself, and we appreciate that. And but we feel that you're doing a tremendous job. We really appreciate the work you're doing here, and just wanted to take the opportunity to acknowledge that effort and thank you very much for it. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think Eileen is one of the top 5 managers in the state.
And none of us disagree with you.
Okay.
In fact, all very much agree with you. That
Okay,
she's doing an
thank you.
excellent job. Thank you. Yes.
I wasn't part of the evaluation, I want that noted. But I had occasion to interact with the town manager over the last 3 or 4 years on issues that were not always comfortable with another group that I worked with. And I have to tell you, she's a good manager, a good person to work with. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to commend Eileen for this past year. When you're not, and this is my second year as a counselor, when you kind of get a chance to see what goes on kind of behind the curtain, and there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of wheels that are turning, and a lot of balls that the town manager is juggling. And so she's done a great job with a lot of issues that I thought came up this year. And so I just want to say, nice job and congratulations and thanks for a job well done.
Very cool. Thank you. And anybody else? I certainly echo all of those comments and have enjoyed working with you these past few years and look forward to this coming year of working even closer. Past 8 years, yep.
Wow.
Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
There are some days that just never end.
Today was 8 years ago, as a matter of fact.
Wow.
Oh, okay. All right. So thank you very much for all your efforts and your work. Is that it? Moving along, minutes. We have minutes from the April 11th town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the town council meeting minutes of Thursday, April 11th, 2019, be approved with the following modifications.
Second.
Moved by Bill, seconded by Barbara Healy. Go ahead.
Page 3, line 29. The sentence reads, Assistant Director Croce stated the only limits New Hampshire TES currently has fort, should be 4.
Okay. F-O-U-R?
Yep.
No.
F-O-U-R, yeah.
F-O-R.
F-O-R. On page
Sorry,
4.
just being a jerk.
I know, I'm with you. On page 4, line 26, subcommittee, it's either going to be all lowercase or all uppercase. Pick one or the other. Line
Okay.
27, same page. It talks about their continual goal, or is it continuing goal?
One of those. Continuing.
Continuing.
control is the refreshing of bark mulch.
Correct. And that is all I had. And now I'll wait for Council Healy. Actually, I apologize. I'm not done. Page 12. Page 12, line 13. The sentence reads, "Asked for his opinion, comma. Chief Currier stated the North End voter is in the building for police and fire communications." I have no idea what
that means.
what that means. Tower.
Tower.
But it's
North-
called a
North End
voter,
Tower.
isn't
It
it?
reads voter.
Police
Right.
communication system, they actually call it a voter.
Really?
Set up in various sections of town.
Okay.
So can we qualify that maybe in parentheses and say what it is?
A router?
Or
It's not a router.
It's not a router, and it's not just a tower, it's more than that.
Okay.
well, we didn't know what it was.
I learned something new.
I did too.
And that's all I had.
Okay,
Okay. Go for it.
thank you. On page 2, the PFAS update, can we say somewhere in that first line that it's by Sarita Croce?
Well, that was one of my comments too, so, yeah.
So we because you don't really figure that out until a couple of paragraphs later. And then on line 5, these were also groundwater quality standards. I believe it was only drinking water. Line
No,
4.
she works for wastewater, so it would be groundwater.
Okay, then
Surface water.
surface. Okay, and then on page 3, line 26. In the middle of the line, they cannot land apply the biosolids.
Right, they can't apply the biosolids to land.
Yeah, so it doesn't say that, though, it's backwards. So it should be, they cannot apply the biosolids to land anywhere in Maine.
Right, and I think that's what the language in the letter actually said from it explains it. You're explaining it a little bit better, but maybe you could put land dash apply.
Yeah, you could say that, but I would qualify it as being in Maine.
I'm sorry, in May. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's all I have, because Mr. Boyd took a few of mine.
Anybody else with comments?
I have one.
Go ahead.
Page 12, line 20. Page 12, line 24. Councilor Harrington asked would be required to shore up, I think the shore, S-H-O-R-E.
Shore up, S-H-O-R-E instead of
Yeah, he's right, sure.
line 24, page 12. Shore up instead of shore up.
You don't have yours on either.
But I'm louder than you.
Line 24, page 12, line 24.
The word sure
Bring back
should,
information on what would be required to S-H-O-R-E up and improve.
Here's a change.
thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? I abstained because I was not here. Which-
Lon's abstaining because he wasn't.
And Lon's abstaining as well. Thank you. Appreciate it. So that's a 4-0-2 vote with Lon Woods and Tom Koenig abstaining. That brings us to comments from the press. That was easy. Comments from the public?
Rosemary Rung, 21 Ministerial Drive. I just want to thank all of you that went out on Old Blood Road, Nancy, when you mentioned that, because it's a horrendous road. And I think it means a lot that you went out to experience it yourself. And the other thing I want to say about the solar exemptions, I totally support the solar exemptions. And it's not just because that's something we should encourage people to do, is to seek renewable energy sources. But if we look at it from a macro level, and I've learned a lot about this at the State House, is that using these type of systems lowers our peak demand. And New Hampshire pays the highest transmission rates in New England because we have the highest peak demand. And other states are lowering their peak demand, transferring that transmission cost to us because we don't have the prevalence of solar and wind energy. So I think as a state, we're looking to promote that a lot more so we can get off those high transmission costs. But it starts with each community. So I think it would behoove Merrimack to really think about providing those exemptions. There are many, many towns if you just go on the website, just Google New Hampshire solar exemptions. Yeah, there's a lot of communities that do it. They each have their own. Some do it 50% exemption or whatever, but I would really encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosemary. Anybody else?
Spoke, but so I just wanted to take a minute to.
Can you introduce yourself?
Oh, sorry. My name's Rob Link from One Crestview Circle.
Rob Link?
Yes, L-I-N-K. So one thing you'll find online is a list of the exemptions, which is relatively up to date, but I was not able to find, and I don't think it exists anywhere, a list of the assessment values that other towns are using, which I think is also just as important and obviously applies to what we were. So, time's premium for everybody, so not exactly a complete list of New Hampshire, but it's a list of the surrounding towns to Merrimack at least. And then I tried to get some of the more expensive towns like Hampton on there as well, just because I thought that kind of would frame the conversation a little bit. But so a lot of them do have the 100% exemption, but their assessment value is zero. I called all these towns within the last 2 days to get these.
How can you have an exemption when it's zero?
So if they were to ever choose to assess it, it would already have an exemption in place.
So they have an assessment before they assess. They have an exemption before they assess.
Well, so they've assessed it at zero, but if they were ever to change that assessment to $300 a panel, $600 a panel, whatever,
okay,
it would then be exempt. The Bedford office gave me an even odder answer in terms of how things had worked previous to in like the last year. They were actually lowering the value of homes based on it, based on the having solar panels. So it's actually giving you a tax
Deduction,
break
yeah.
versus a zero-sum game. So I think that kind of speaks volumes too as to Merrimack. I do believe is a much bigger outlier than it may have seemed earlier in the conversation. So I did want to just provide that to you all to also consider. And another, I guess, data point that I wanted to mention was my solar panels are currently assessed at more than I paid out of pocket for them brand new. So I'm not that smart and I'm not that lucky that I was able to somehow find the perfect investment that actually would add $3,000 to my house. If that was the economics of it, I think everybody would have them, right? But why wouldn't you? But they don't just add that you wouldn't just get that equity right away. So again, I just think that it shows that there's flaws in how the town's doing it right now, and it's not fair, in my opinion. Just wanted to provide that information and my thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you guys. You stayed this whole time.
Some attrition.
Andrew Snellinger, 136 Natticook Road. Just wanted to talk about some of the solar stuff. Yeah, I'd love it if there were just a straight exemption, but anyways, I just wanted to kind of point out a few flaws with the way that they're sort of assessing these panels. Nothing else in the solar world, actually, so I'm an electrical engineer. I actually work in alternative energy systems for work, and nobody else cares about how many panels there are. It doesn't matter. So you have a system that got installed 5 years ago, a panel might have produced 200 watts. A panel today might be 400 watts. So now you're going to assess the same person, the same value to a panel when somebody who installs it in 2019, theirs performs twice as well as somebody who installed the panel 5 years ago. So, and when you're going to buy a house, I mean, I don't know, at least me, I'm an engineer, I got copies of the electric bills, and I look at you know, how much this house is going to cost me over in utilities. And so, you know, if you have actual economic data that says I save this amount in my electric bill, then yeah, then maybe it does add value to the home. But anyways, the actual number of panels is sort of irrelevant in this. It's kind of like the assessor saying that, you know, I've got a 100 square foot room, and because that person chose to use 1-inch tiles to tile their room, and they've got 14,000 tiles, that room is worth more than a room where they put 2-foot tiles in and there's only 25 tiles in that room to do the same exact thing, you know? So, I don't know, it's a little bit weird with that. And then I guess just the way that they're saying the assessment data, where they say it adds value. So in Merrimack, 5 homes sold where they have actual data for, and that's not really a lot. I don't think that's statistically relevant. And then they would say that, you know, they look at the overall market picture. Well, you have a lot of towns in Merrimack or a lot of towns in New Hampshire that exempt solar. So now you're going to pull data in from those towns where these people aren't paying an extra $500 a year because, so yeah, it does add value to their homes. But in Merrimack, like, you know, I pay whatever it is, $300 or $400 in tax a year. So that is actually, well, it's not fully detracting. So it's reducing the savings that I get every year out of that. So it does offset the benefit that some other municipality who does not, who does exempt the panels, you know, will end up having. So, and yeah, so, and yeah, I mean, just with the assessor, how they said that it's just, they do it based on the number of panels because that's an easy way for them to do it. So, I mean, they really don't have the technical expertise to really verify that. I mean, if you go to get the state rebate on solar, you actually have to go through, you have to use an actual tool to measure what your solar production would be. They actually sell devices. You can go to your location, you can actually pull data up, and it'll say if you put a panel on this thing at this angle, it will generate this amount of power, and it's basically, that's how much money it's worth to the homeowner. So but yeah, and even the utilities and stuff, they really just care about what the total kilowatt size of the system is, not how many. They could care less how many bolts you need to hold the rack. So,
Right.
But
Thank you.
so,
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll make it very quick. I'm Rudy Baselmans from 174 Natticook, and I don't want to talk about my solar, but there are 2 things you might want to consider. One of them is that for people who are leasing their solar, they're actually only getting a portion of their money from the savings, and because of that, the tax actually has a massive impact on people who lease. I don't have that situation, but you might want to consider that if you're going to do assessments. And the second and final thing is that the solar costs are flattening out a lot compared to a few years ago, but the incentives from the electric company for what you get back have disappeared, and also the federal and state benefits and money back is disappearing. So if you ever want to have more solar in Merrimack, you have to figure out what to do about the people who are doing in the future. So not about me, but I think we can think about some of the other things we're doing. Thank you very much.
Good point.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more comments? Seeing none. Comments from the council?
Well, I just would like to say I forgot to welcome you. table mate. And welcome.
Thank you.
And you've had, your first meeting has been long.
I have
And
one.
congratulations, Barbara.
Thank you.
And that's all.
I have one short comment, if I might.
Sure.
It's a somewhat humbling experience to have been elected to the council, but I'm very honored to be here. And hope I can keep the momentum going that I've witnessed over the last 3 or 4 meetings in terms of a positive way of looking and helping solve problems for the community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
We're still under comments
Still
from the
under
council,
comments.
if you don't mind.
Oh, you were trying to, she's trying to take your
But that was
place.
a good trick.
Someone has to pick up that.
Bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Lon. Happy to have you back. Barbara, very happy you're back. So looking forward to working with both of you this year. I really want to thank my colleagues for the honor, the privilege. Not something I was planning on. So thank you very much for the privilege to sit in this chair. It means a lot to me. I would be remiss if I didn't thank Eileen and Paul as well for the last 8 years of serving as a counselor to get to this particular position. And I do want to thank my wife, Michelle, and my daughter, Jade, because a lot of the things that I do, I sacrifice time away from being at home with my wife and my daughter. So I really want to thank them for supporting me and being able to not just be in a leadership position here, but to serve my community in the way that I do. So thank you, everybody. And again, it's not lost on me. I am humbled beyond words. So thank you very much. And lastly, go Bruins, go Celtics.
Nothing? Well, if I can just add one last word. I'm going to join the crowd. Lon, I probably was more remiss than Nancy in not welcoming you to the council. Glad to have you here with us, and I think you are going to be an asset, and we look forward to working with you. I thank all of the council for your confidence in me and having me be your chair. I will do my best to provide the leadership you're looking for and at least bring us all together and working towards the betterment of Merrimack. Barbara, congratulations on your win, and Bill, congratulations on
Look
being
forward to
vice
working
chair.
with you. Thank
I
you.
think it's going to be an awesome year, and
too.
we're going to keep moving forward with Merrimack, so thank you very much.
Move to adjourn?
Move to adjourn by Barbara, seconded by Peter Albert. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We adjourned.
Tom